Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, October 30th, so I imagine Halloween is about to happen over the weekend. Yeah, we have been seeing a lot of horror games coming out, so that would certainly be in line. Um, for the accountability section, I spent nearly a day getting absolutely nowhere. Apparently, one of the programs, the Docker server images, containers is what they're called, uh, that I'm trying to set up on my server, just actively and almost consistently um, changes the configuration file. So I spent like a whole day going, I keep changing this configuration file and it's just not working. It's not loading. The actual server is not loading the configurations. It's just not doing the thing that it should do. It's a thing. Um, it's a reverse proxy for web servers using Nginx, in like Nginx, which is like the replacement for Apache. Where you used to have a LAMP stack, is what they would call it, where it was Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, which is typically like 4 layers of servers, server supporters to run a web server. Um, but yeah, MySQL has kind of been replaced by a more open source Maria database, which is pretty much backwards compatible. Um, and Apache is slowly being replaced with Nginx, which is somewhat backwards compatible. I don't know if I should re-roll any of these. These all seem like they might work fairly well. And we've got an arena rank run again. So do we want to open any packs to start with? Yeah. Like, I don't think... Well, in the long run, I'm just going to wear down my gold doing this, but I think it is the right move to just every couple of days um, open up a pack, even if we don't have any tickets. I should have been sitting on tickets more, and instead I boosted myself upward. And it's not like I've spent any time whatsoever uh, rebuilding a deck or anything, um, so it's kind of like not that useful to even be doing what I'm doing in the short run. I suppose I should mention that the Japanese version of Shadowverse has gone and censored a decent amount of older cards, I would say. Um, we could probably look at one of them. It seems like they're claiming they had to do this, but I don't know why they would have had to do it. A lot of times it's really just we're showing covering up more cleavage, or in a lot of cases it was um, a lot of cases it was covering up outfits. Uh, so yeah, Sweet Fang Vampire in the Japanese version, as you can kind of tell, it's covering up like thongs too, butts and thongs. So like in the Japanese version, there was probably nothing on the upper thigh part of this character, and the belly was probably showing, and it was really more of a image there. Um, as far as why, um, I with the new anime that they have that is targeted towards kids, with the new Switch game that's targeted towards kids, there was, I just believe, a decision to shift Shadowverse to be more kid friendly and less lewd. There's still plenty of pictures that will show a decent amount of back and cleavage, but a card like this in the past may have not had a skirt in the Japanese version. And that definitely takes the game in a different direction than where I would want it to go personally. Like the thing that was attracting to me in Shadowverse was, and a lot of people in Japan, was the slightly lewd art. Although it doesn't really matter that much. This is a different art style and shows quite a lot of belly, particularly when you're referencing Witcher 3, and this is clearly supposed to be a younger kid. So I really can't go into a huge rant. Like, it's the same censorship rant over and over again. The original creator felt like they wanted to go in a different direction. I wouldn't be surprised if, considering this is like a 4 or 5 year old game, we're approaching 5 years as far as Shadowverse running around in Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if the game is just kind of losing audience, and they're desperately trying to find a way to maintain and grow an audience. Yeah, this may have been a case where the pants weren't originally there at all, and it was more of a thong slash skirt slash like bikini bottom outfit. I'm trying to see if I can find any that I specifically saw, because there's a lot of them. A lot of the original cards that just get slightly changed. There was one with a ninja that I felt like that was probably the strangest change. Like, some of them were very weird in that it would be like a bottom thong that was then had a skirt over it. But then the amount of cleavage and shoulder was not changed at all. And unless Shadowverse or Saijin as a company is getting orders from some parent company or or investor or something like that, I really just don't know. Like why they would be changing it. But also, it's kind of not unheard of that for Saijin, the makers of this game, to kind of go back and edit their things. And we've seen this with certainly with what is it, Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, it only Hearthstone has been, well, at least for a very long time, Hearthstone was very consistent in not changing any of the art in its cards as a digital game. It could have done that at any point, and it wasn't until after I stopped playing Hearthstone that they started to come back and change a few of the cards. And Hearthstone always felt like it intentionally wanted to be family friendly, so that's not super surprising. There are Magic the Gathering card art changes all the time, and only a few of them are for like real censorship reasons. Although there is, I think, probably an artist or two that either the right or the left extremist on one side really hates that person for some cancel culture reason, I'm sure. I think this is another card that was changed, but just had more of a skirt added. But there was a ninja card specifically, and I probably won't find it, where, yeah, this was one that was changed, where a skirt was added, where it was just more like tights showing, and just showing an actual curvature of a butt. And that's the one that strikes me the weirdest, is that they would feel the need that if someone was wearing tights, and they were slightly bent over, the natural curvature of their behind can't be shown. That seems like that's a fairly normal experience in the real world, is women wear pants and jeans. Although in Japan, I suppose it is worth mentioning that there probably aren't that many women that wear pants, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the censorship really does come down from that. This one was edited, and really it was just adding longer leggings. Like, she was wearing short shorts, and now she's wearing just shorts. But even in this case, you still barely have somebody wearing anything besides a skirt, and you will see a behind. So anything, I guess the butt lovers of the game are going to be very, very underserved in this in Japan. Although most of these are just censored things. Like this art, for instance, was way less. It was just a full metal bikini, and you don't see in the global versions anything like that where people are wearing just full like metal bikini style armor. But on the other hand, while censorship is bad and changing an artist's original intent is bad in general, and just not something anybody really wants, I could certainly see maybe offering that. There's a difference between forcing someone and then offering someone the censored art. But there are mods almost certainly out there that could restore the original art to these cards. I'm imagining that there's mods out there that can completely replace the art with even more lewd or just straight up pornographic images if you want that too. That was one of the things about that Hearthstone mod that really caught my attention, is that I'd never be able to play with it or show it, but the idea that you could be playing Hearthstone and mod it so that there's just straight up toplessness and nudity on the cards is interesting, to say the least. And Destiny Child, the mobile game I play, which is an extremely lewd game that has not been really terrible about censoring things. In fact, the most things I think they've censored are probably ads. Like, here's another one that was censored. This was just originally a bikini thong type outfit, and they've changed it now, so it's short shorts. But yeah, there's there are mods for Destiny Child too that would just they take it too far, frankly, in my opinion, some of the mods, because then it gets fairly boring. It's titillating. For instance, let's see an outfit like this where you're seeing a little bit of leg, but if every single card was just straight up full nudity and nobody was wearing any outfits, then that would get very boring and redundant. Alright, let's actually play some games. I actually did, for the accountability section, even though I spent half a day banging my head against Docker and the Docker Compose server helper, which in theory the idea of using Docker/Docker Compose isolates everything really nicely and reduces your risk of potentially getting hacked, in theory, by sandboxing everything, and theoretically makes everything easier. It kind of only makes everything easier if you know what you're doing and you have the scripted compose file programmed right. Like, in theory, once the compose file is perfectly set up, I could take that file and a folder with some other config files that have to be adjusted for specific containers. But you take this relatively small folder, and all you'd have to type in is like Docker Compose up, and it will then download all these images and set up the servers exactly like you want them to be, across multiple servers. Which, that's the whole idea, is to say, hey, here's a server that I want to deploy the same thing that I've done 20 different times for different clients, and so let's just run the same thing and get it ready to go. but the devil certainly is in the details with that stuff. But I did play 2 free games, which typically I don't play free-to-play games. They were just free, by the same developer, but I wanted to play them. The first one I played was In the Mind of Marlowe, which it has this kind of funny British upper lip documentary. There's a documentary being recorded about a person who has silly head syndrome, so every few seconds, the head of the main character swaps into different animals. So there is a shark. Well, not always an animal. It also swaps into a block of ice. There's a shark and a block of ice, a cat, and a slug, and then Marlowe, who is the human. And so throughout this whole time, most of those characters don't really have much of a personality, but they do seem to have some small personality that affects Marlowe. There's you walk around literally a 4-scene point-and-click adventure looking for items to scare away the heads and cure him so he can leave his house. So you gotta scare away the slug, the cat, the shark, and throughout the entirety of the game, you are being shown, being told the story of how Marlowe had this girlfriend named Linda that left him, and how he had an incredibly miserable childhood, where his father abandoned him, and then his older sister raised him at that point and was incredibly mean and abusive to him. And it's just like this really sad story that most people would take, but it's trying to be kind of like a comedic, almost slapstick experience. The creators of the game, I imagine, voice acted it, so you have like maybe 2 British voice actors, and it's a pretty good hour-long experience with a lot of achievements. And then the second game is how to cope with isolation and boredom, which is a similar concept in that you're playing as a documentary crew who has to, instead of play a point-and-click adventure, you select 3 items and then shoot the documentary about this man who's like 45 and has been grounded by his abusive mother for 30 plus years, and so you get to potentially pick 3 items, and that makes the documentary that reveals a little bit more about this man and his mother. But there's a considerable lack of polish, in my opinion, as far as how to cope with boredom and isolation. And the main reason I wanted to play it is simply because it was a interesting title to put on and spotlight. But there's no solution there. There's no big speech, and it really feels like there should have been a big speech that said, okay, these are the things you should do to cope with isolation and boredom. There's no big reveal about the man. Like, it seems fairly obvious that it should be kind of like a Binding of Isaac resolution, where you would eventually unlock all the endings, and he would kill his mother or run away from his mother, and that would be the revelation, and that just doesn't happen.
My sword serves as a powerful talisman. The real battle begins. In the gods I trust.
Okay. So you pick 3 items out of maybe about 12 items, and then you get a review of how the documentary episode was received by viewers, and if you and each review gives you like a score out of 10. There are 3 items that give you 10 out of 10, which there's no big spoiler there, and there's an achievement for that. But that's pretty much the entirety of the game.
Speak. You just gotta listen.
Playing both of these games, how to cope with boredom and isolation, and In the Mind of Marlowe, both highlight a lot of issues about Steam more than anything, in that they are free games that clearly didn't get enough coverage to potentially launch this company into a company that could make a product they could sell and make profit from, so they almost certainly will never make another game. They're really, both games are free on Steam, so they probably just put them out there to be nice to society, and basically do the equivalent of putting them in the public domain. But there's just not a not a way to get attention on Steam with a free game, and there's not a way to make a business around 2 free games. You could maybe put 1 free game out and then expect to charge for the next game, but they didn't do that. It really highlights how Steam probably should have an indie section, a small section, a free section, different stores for different things. Like going to a Walmart toy section, a Super Walmart toy section, is a different experience from going to the toy aisle in a grocery store. In this, or before Toys R Us went out of business, the going to a Toys R Us was definitely a different experience than going to a grocery store's toy aisle. Grocery store's toy aisle is probably going to just have like very consistent sellers and very top tier sellers. You'll have Lego, but you won't have massive collections of Lego, particularly of things. Massive collections of
Godsworn wall. Unmoving shield.
what did that do? Can't take more than 4 damage at a time. Interesting. So that supports me not taking that much damage, as long as I have an amulet on the field. But yeah, trying to compete against a AAA game with a point-and-click adventure game that has 4 scenes and maybe 7 items, or a pick 3 items and you get a different ending based on those 3 items. You really don't even get different endings. You get a different ending if you can find the 3 10 out of 10 items, but otherwise you just have to pick all 3 items to see a cutscene based on each individual item you pick. So it's a really bad idea. They could have taken both concepts and merged them together and had one game where they were bouncing between multiple characters that were incredibly sad, pathetic losers, which is what both of the characters would be, although that's very much blaming the victim a lot. Let's see. See. Do we want to do this?
I cannot pray to the gods for this.
Here we go and do that. what they probably should have done is have a series of unfortunate events, and in the Mind of Marlowe they kind of do that, where they have a second act that's a bit of a surprise, but they don't make that second act do anything really different. You're in the same room, you're using the same items pretty much, so you it's really more of a coda than a true second act. Whereas I would think you would want to do a point and click adventure if you're gonna do a story like that, where it's like the series of unfortunate events books, where something terrible happens to the characters and they're in great danger, and then they manage to escape and think that they're finally safe, and then all of a sudden it turns to it. In a weird way, that's kind of like Leisure Suit Larry too, as I understand the original games, is that maybe, just maybe, you actually get to see a boob or have sex as Leisure Suit Larry at the end of those games, but it almost certainly then just falls apart as Leisure Suit Larry is too sleazy and too pathetic of a character really to maintain a relationship and get that good ending. He's not the kind of character that the writers would want to give a good ending to. And then I was going to play Hydrophobia, but sleep took me, as it were. So that is my thought. There was definitely 2 or 3 hours there where I was thinking to myself, man, I just need to start. I need to pick something and start playing another game. But yeah, I also need to cover the news, so let's start covering it. We had news left over from the weekend, and it definitely does just seem like we are going to consistently have games come out that are inspired by Halloween. 22 years ago, Grim Fandango was released. Man, that makes people feel old, including me. Oh, I don't know why I phrased that way. That's a terrible way to phrase anything. Let's do this. Punishment. And then this.
Prepare to face judgment.
Punishment.
And then
Death pounce.
do that.
Repent.
And then do that. I just don't really get why games come out like that. It's so close to the
moonlight. Put your legs into each prayer.
Justice does not hide in the shadows.
yeah. I really just don't get why so many games would come out near Halloween. It's not like Halloween really does anything as far as game sales, as far as I know. We have a Halloween sale happening, but I don't know if I'm going to be playing any of that, really. Like, I don't know if there's a good reason to particularly try and spend money. I just found out that there was a Lego set for a haunted house that I either forgot about or had never seen before. And I already spent a lot of budget this year on Lego and other things. In fact, I arguably blew my budget on Lego because I ended up buying bookshelves, and the bookshelves themselves then become a massive amount of the cost of Lego. Okay, well, how can we do this so we don't die?
The real battle begins.
set, I will rise again.
There we go. Yeah, getting good shelves. Shelving, unfortunately, and furniture in general, you can either get IKEA cheap stuff and throw it away when you move, and then rebuy, and if you're not moving that often, that should work fairly well, but or you can try to go a little bit higher, and you can spend like $200 on shelves. That's pretty much what I spent for, and then you've got to, at that point, think about, well, this shelf is probably taking up floor to ceiling if it's a tall shelf, and for me, who has a lot of things, a lot of collectibles, you want it to be a particularly tall shelf. It's probably taking up 3-4 square feet in your house, and if you're paying every month potentially on a mortgage $10-20 per square foot, you'd have to run the numbers yourself. You see. If I had more evolution points, but I don't have more evolution points, so
Resign yourself.
we're gonna have to do this.
Resign yourself.
Then we're gonna have to do this.
The world cycles on.
So you're paying certainly for everything you own, square footage wise. And then if you have $200 shelves, then you theoretically need to have $200 or more, probably a lot more, on those shelves. And it would be pretty easy to not have that much. Now, if you have even one shelf full of video games, that you probably have hit that point, and Lego wise, you almost certainly would hit that point. But if you're just getting cheap books or something, that it is very believable that you could have nothing there. And on rare occasions, that like I have been able to get cheaper Walmart shelves for like $60, and that's much more reasonable. But they're also much uglier, frankly. The ones I got from Walmart are not designed particularly well, so that there's a middle shelf that is permanent, that acts as the top and bottom of two separate sections. There are just white stickers that hide the lock nuts that you use to assemble it, and so you just have these fairly ugly white stickers. The backing on almost any shelf is pretty awful these days. You're not likely to get a solid wood back on anything, but they're good enough, frankly. They're good enough, in particular to the cheaper, like $60 Walmart ones I got on sale, slick deals many years ago. They're good enough to potentially install in a house and just leave them in the house and go, yeah, okay, I don't care about those. I'll get something better. Where the fancier ones, I would definitely move with me. Of course, moving large furniture bookshelves is always a danger that the whole thing just falls apart. And it certainly isn't the funnest of experience to have to assemble furniture. And so I got these shelves, and it may take me half a year until I can decide to crawl on the floor long enough to put them together. And yeah, I didn't get them on sale or anything because I wanted them to match the wood of the other shelves I already had, and frankly, furniture is so heavy it very rarely goes on sale. It just costs so much in shipping and such, and there's just a consistent demand for it. I suppose there is a possibility that as the economy gets worse and worse, people would start trying to sell furniture, but I bet they wouldn't get much for it. Like, you don't see a lot of furniture on eBay. You see smaller electronic items that have higher ticket prices. Let's do this.
I soar the
skies
And then
in
this.
the name of justice. Punishment.
Time to dance.
And I guess we hit that. Moving on with video game news though. Let's hurry up. This is gonna take forever. World of Warcraft Shadowlands release date has been set for November 2020. It is also worth mentioning, we'll talk about this later, that the World of Warcraft / Hearthstone, one of the major persons in charge of that, has also left Blizzard. We are seeing that consistently happen with
May you rest in peace.
with employees at Activision Blizzard. So I just don't know if there's really any hope there. Next, we have a game on Steam. The Walking Dead Telltale Definitive Edition is available. And see, that kind of sucks because this is the remake,
I can see the path to heaven.
which includes all 4 seasons, 400 days in The Walking Dead Michonne, which includes over 50 hours of gameplay across 23 unique episodes, which The Walking Dead Definitive Edition, now being published and developed by Skybound Games, did have some visual remaster, although arguably the visual remastering didn't really change that much. It's more just a update and tweak of lighting and shadowing, I would say. But I had all these other Walking Dead games, and I didn't have the last one. So you are in this situation where either, well, apparently I don't have The Walking Dead either on Steam. For this Steam account, what happened there? Where was I buying it? Well, I am utterly confused by that revelation. Let's see. Telltale Games.
Love for the sake of the world.
Yeah, I have Telltale, The Walking Dead, the final season, which I haven't played and covered.
Should I suffocate you?
And then I do have The Walking Dead in my library, so I don't know what happened there. In fact, I think I pretty much own all the Telltale games, because there's like a Telltale bundle, and I had been filling out the Telltale bundle. And I guess the Telltale bundle might be missing now. So if I was to get the remaster, I honestly don't know why I would even want it, but I did put it on the wish list. Like, it would just be a Spotlight, frankly. There literally would be no other argument. Yeah, they've gotten rid of the Telltale bundle. Interesting. Which, with Telltale being out of business, I suppose that makes some sense.
Circles and circles. You were done for.
But yeah, it is definitely hard to justify buying the definitive edition if you already own all the games and haven't even gotten around to playing all the games. But yeah. The Steam Halloween sale is happening right now. In-game Halloween events. I don't think there's really too much here, frankly, as far as them having a mini game or anything. There might be some Darkest Dungeon DLC to consider. Let's check that. Ancestral Edition for $10 would get you several different DLC elements, and let's see, the Butcher's Circus is also should be on the wish list. Well, it's mixed reviewed content anyways. But not getting anywhere here with this this arena challenge, but I'm not surprised.
The real
Either
battle
that's
begins.
how this always goes.
They'll show your malice. Mirror blades, shine.
Let us mingle again.
Let's see. There's a game called Bigfoot. I haven't heard of that one. Is this early access? It's tagged as early access. Here you have Dead Rising 3 on sale. The Dead Island Definitive Edition, which maybe it's not that good. Pacify. And then why did the screen go black for a second there? And then different events that are basically nothing. Here's a Dead Space 3 for $7.99 is a decent game. Devil May Cry 5 Outlast at 80% off is probably a decent discount. Pinball Fx pinball tables at the Williams Universal Monster Pack for $5 might not be a bad idea. And then they're just promoting the point shop more, and we'll look at the point shop. We have some games with demos. Here you have Code Vein at $23.99, which that's probably a really good price. This game's Strange Case Files catches my attention. Is it support English? No. So what's the point of that?
I am your victory, your salvation.
Let's see. This one. Let's see. We got Grey Hat, which is a hacking game, which I don't know why you put that particularly in a horror game. Phasmophobia, not to be confused with Phantasmagoria. Black Desert Online, Death Stranding. Death Stranding, not super horror-ish. Control, Ultimate Edition. I'd argue not really as deeply in that horror element. Man, I hear birds outside, like crows or something. I'm like, man, what does that sound? Dying Light. Then some spooky themes and horror and genres. So let's look at the point shop as it's being depicted here. Like they've done basically nothing to reskin the point shop. I have a balance right now of 2,354 points for these non-refundable items, which were just the items you would have gotten for free in games before. Let's see. And some of these point features are just
Is fighting and despair all you know?
based on
Let's get
games.
this party started.
I think in general I kind of do agree with the idea. These would be only the new things, I imagine. I do agree with the idea of just getting points and then saying, hey, if you want this background, you can buy it with points. But honestly, the truth is they should have just given these all as free items to everybody. And they need to potentially increase the amount of points everybody has. To, hey, you made an account, we're going to give you 1 million points, you can buy whatever you want. The points are there really for no reason other than to hide the fact that these items used to have monetary value and you could trade them in the store. I recently just got a notification of one of the items I sold selling for all of 1 penny. And we could get some Shantae backgrounds, which some of that like makes sense if you want some lewd belly dancing half genie hero character like Shantae. And then there's some of these that don't matter. There is, I suppose, a slight difference here in the fact that we're getting these kind of soft 3D animated images, which had not really been the standard before. So maybe the old items, the old images that were just stationary little GIFs or emoticons have now been replaced with more animated GIFs. Here you can see Geralt bathtub for 1,000 points. And almost certainly at some point they're going to try and motivate you to spend more money and buy something. So the right move at this point is to just sit on your points. And wait, let's see all 14 of the Shantae and the Pirate Curse items. Nope, not anything else super interesting. Shantae Risky Revenge, even smaller animations. Beyond Eyes, a game I didn't really like. The Room 3, not really. Cluedo. Yeah, some of these games I haven't played in a while, so I also know that there definitely are games out there, Disoriented, I didn't like. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, Koi Koi Japan, Valley. Yeah, a lot of these are games I played quite a while ago. So yeah, I definitely know that I don't know if I should have played that. That was a mistake. But yeah, that's seemingly all there is to the Halloween sale. Here we can see on the main storefront, it's just a top banner advertisement, and then you have Doom Eternal 50% off, Sea of Thieves being promoted, and then just kind of brand new games. Action Tainan, have it as a free-to-play game. Anime, let's see. We'll look at that. Amnesia Rebirth. Star Wars Squadron. Half-Life Alyx. I feel like Half-Life Alyx is going to, in the long run, have a ridiculously long lead up. As far as just how much advertisement they give themselves as it's their own product. And certainly that is the danger in which people could get upset, or you could make claims of monopoly in the idea that you're promoting your own games more than others. Let's see, we also have some special offers for like Vault, which I don't know if that's any good. Sekiro, games made in France in general. That might be a weird way. Sims 4. And I did hear something about the Sims 4. They was apparently somebody was censoring out the Rising Sun flag. There is a lot of SJWs out there that hate the Rising Sun flag, and they're just incredibly stupid because that's not the flag that was flown during the time in which Japan was in World War II attacking everybody and being generally bad guys. So it really just then comes off with, okay, so you're an idiot and you're just being anti-Japanese, which sure, I get it. A lot of people probably have been directly affected by the atrocities of past regimes in Japan. But generally speaking, the California SJWs were not. Like, maybe a few of them were. Maybe some of them had family members at Pearl Harbor. Sure, but get your history right if you're gonna try to censor something. And honestly, it's kind of censoring the Rising Sun flag, or even censoring the flag that actually was flown during that time, is just like censoring the swastika, and it's just this pathetic attempt to rewrite history instead of realizing that history happened and we need to remember that history happened. Otherwise, we're going to be doomed to repeat it. See, Hades is like 20% off. Not much of a sell. Generally, we don't look at all this. The Star Wars special offers is pretty much the other thing I'd like to be interested in. And then, yeah, they're saying, hey, some anime games for you because we know you've wishlisted a lot of anime games. Yeah, I bet you get a pretty different experience based on a few sales. The Star Wars bundle, though, was the one that I was interested in here because I own almost all the Star Wars worth owning. So, Squadrons is new and it's on my wish list. There's some Old Republic games that I don't play Old Republic because it's MMORPG, Jedi Fallen Order, and Battlefront 2. There might be enough single player games there. I guess that's probably why Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2 are on the wish list. Here you have Sims Star Wars crossover events that is mixed reviewed. Battlefront. This is the remake of Battlefront, I think. The Star Wars Classics Bundle Complete Collection here. Let's look at that. Yeah, it's not on my wish list because, with the exception of Episode 1 and this, I could actually buy this fairly easily and just, that's how I had most of the Star Wars Classics games. Let's see. Let's come back over here. See, as far as Pinball Fx3, there's like one pinball. I haven't played any pinball in a long time. I probably overspent, frankly, buying this. I don't know why the Star Wars games are on sale right now around Halloween. That doesn't make the most amount of sense. I heard rumors, and I would certainly put this in rumors, that they might be secretly in development of The Force Unleashed 3. I seriously doubt it, but you never know. Like, the problem with the idea that A Force Unleashed 3 is in development is the idea that there's any company actually working on it, and that LucasArts / Disney would be interested in that and interested in funding it, because they almost certainly would have had to greenlit it either a year ago or as soon as they, or sometime really close to the point where they just acquired Star Wars, and that they, I guess, were going to try and make a Force Unleashed story that would have integrated into the previous Star Wars trilogy, and I just don't believe that, unless this is a rumor that has just been immediately leaked and development has just been greenlit for The Force Unleashed 3. That would make some more sense, frankly, if they said, well, we don't know what to do. We have the license to this whole spin-off character. Star Killer as a character might be a very interesting character to make a Disney Plus TV series around. So let's make a video game and see and satisfy those fans, and potentially have him in our back pocket as somebody that we could make a story around. I'm not sure how many of the employees at LucasArts care one way or another about whether Star Killer gets integrated into complete canon, because they could always just retcon it again. But I think this is mostly rumor. I just don't think Sony, Disney cares about video games enough that they would let anybody, even a third-party company, make a Star Wars game that is going to be that far off when you look at their experience otherwise. And it is a case of, we'll let you do Battlefront, which is just a monetization, not classic Battlefront, but the new Battlefront games, a monetization full experience where you where EA can just make a cheap buck off of it. Although on the other hand, Squadrons, I guess, is a attempts to get back to something like TIE Fighter. And so maybe they are trying to introduce the idea and work around the idea of
Prepare to face judgment.
bringing back the old games and bringing back as much love to the Star Wars universe as is possible. Like, that would certainly be helpful, frankly. Alright, and the game that they recommended to me, Action Taimanin, Taimanin, is rated very positively and tagged with sexual content, and it does seem like it is a MMO RPG with some just big boobed characters in a high action experience, hack and slash experience. It doesn't actually look bad for a game. Like, it doesn't just feel like a cheap product. Apparently it's also on cell phones. Let's see.
Hearken the voice of divine wind.
But could you really play this on YouTube and stay within YouTube family friendliness? I suppose it is also worth mentioning that YouTube has decided in some level of insanity to give a community guideline warning / strike, since a warning is a one-time thing, whereas the only time a warning is not really just a first level strike in something is if you could get multiple warnings, an unlimited number of warnings.
It is not my place to show mercy.
Like, if your cars automatically gave you warnings because you were speeding infinitely, that would be one thing. But that's not how it works on YouTube. Let's see.
Resign yourself.
What does this do? I don't want to evolve. I want to keep this. I want to potentially have the... Well, evolving would have probably helped a little there, but not by much. Yeah, Action Time In might be something interesting to potentially look at as far as a cell phone game. Although I also don't know if there's a long run experience here. It's because it's an MMO RPG. I don't know what the single experience is compared to the let's play this every day and potentially fight characters against characters. Alright, so as is still pretty standard, we totally lost there. I need to hurry up quite a bit. Let's get back to our missions. Let's see. Havencraft or Portalcraft? I guess we'll try Portalcraft now. It feels like we lost a button here. Like, maybe that's just because I changed the resolution again, but crate, battle pass, missions, guild, more is for options. Clearly they have too many buttons in general. Let's see, do we have a Portalcraft? We do, but it's not very good, is it? Let's stick with this Portalcraft. I think we already talked about this. We have this game, Hermitage Strange Case Files, which looks like it's a Japanese kind of visual novel murder mystery, but English is not supported. It's $4.99. It's Chinese only. Sorry. I guess I should applaud it then. If this is a Chinese product, it looks way better visually polished than most of the Chinese products we see, and that's certainly always nice to see. when that happens. And next we have a game on Steam here called Tainted Fate, which is already rated mixed. Play as a demon in a story-driven slasher horror game. Right. It does have some shadowing, shading, texturing issues. Like, you can kind of see that there's a slightly lacking quality there. But it looks like some VR game too. $8.99. English full audio. I kind of want to see what the reviews are. Playing as a demon and ripping the head off of something. Another demon is kind of funny. You make your way through the game either teleporting or using a mix of teleportation and smooth locomotion. You'll be ripping off enemies' limbs with the dismemberment system. You can summon minions. Texture pop is pretty bad. Lots of bugs. Some of them are groundbreaking. At best, the mechanics get really stale really quick. Also, with the bugs and general unpolished look, it's not something I can recommend. So yeah, unfortunately, I do think at best I could be super generous on this VR game and say, well, maybe they'll fix the bugs. But I bet they rushed it out for Halloween, and I bet they never touch it again. They're deciding to move really slow. And even if they were to fix the bugs, the core idea of running around and grabbing demons and ripping them apart in VR falls pretty poorly. It falls apart as an idea. Which I think that is kind of the problem in general with a lot of the VR games, is that you tend to not really have a full gameplay mechanic that really works. Yeah, I'm watching the video here, and you're just ripping apart heads off goats, heads off monks, heads off demons, limbs off demons, and then you just throw them. And while these would be cool ideas, there are a couple boss fights, so that they really do seem like they were trying. But yeah, I just don't think there's enough of a game there. But I'll put it on the follow list anyways, because we still are very much scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as VR games. Next we have a game on Steam here called Undungeon Arena. This probably is a multiplayer top-down twin-stick shooter, or it's just maybe a roguelike twin-stick shooter that's not multiplayer. The backgrounds seem fairly repetitive in this area. It's free and it's single player only. It's English, Russian, and Ukrainian. And it's a demo for Undungeon, basically. Yeah, I don't think you would want to really spoil yourself or hype yourself up for another game, so this is not the kind of thing I could recommend. Russian and Ukrainian language support is always suspect, too. That it is just a low-effort experience. Gamatsu has an article here. Annapurna Interactive establishes an internal development studio. They're currently hiring experienced game developers to fill key roles. This is a Los Angeles, California based company. It's kind of crazy to start a new company in LA. This is they publish games like What Remains of Edith Finch, Sayonara Wild Hearts, Outer Wilds, Wyatum, and more upcoming titles such as The Pathless, Stray, Solar Ash, and 12 Minutes, which I recognize a lot of those games, but that is also very possibly an example of mainstream video game journalists over emphasizing and over highlighting Annapurna Interactive published games more than Annapurna Interactive published games being particularly great. Although What Remains of Edith Finch I think probably is a pretty good game. But also not really a game that I think grabbed actual gamers' attention for long. There is this weirdness where you kind of are just in a different mindset, in a different place with what I imagine the average gamer is thinking about or playing as a video game critic. And at a certain point, yes, your job, if you choose to make it part of your job, will be to highlight things people haven't seen before versus just playing the most popular, everybody's heard of it games. And that's where you get the Twitch streamers versus a video game critic difference, is that Twitch streamers will just play games everybody has already heard about, and they're not really showing anything new or saying anything new about a game. Where critics theoretically are supposed to be covering things people haven't heard about, or at least trying to give a new opinion on something old. It'd be very hard for me to play something like Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. 1 and just go through that and just show my lack of gameplay skill there. I really wouldn't be able to say too much new as far as what my experience or my understanding of that game is compared to anybody else.
Victory is in my orbit.
That.
Sweep the legs.
Net. There we go. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Quick Square, which is a frustration platforming game. It kind of looks like a mobile game with all the coins, but it's widescreen, so they at least applaudibly made this not look completely like a mobile game port, although it still does have this like pause menu in the middle of the screen. It's early access, $5.39, 10 achievements, bunch of languages. Nothing really there that's quality. Here's that story that I was talking about. The longtime Hearthstone World of Warcraft designer Dave Kozak has departed Blizzard. He was the principal narrative designer of World of Warcraft themed card battler Hearthstone. He's going to be joining Devotion Games as a creative director for a yet unreleased project. Interesting. If you follow me because of Hearthstone, no worry, last week we announced a great expansion, new game mode, and new progression rewards. Believe me when I say there's only the beginning. So, yeah. Hearthstone's still a big deal to a lot of people. Although, frankly, I imagine it can't be that big of a deal going forward forever.
Cleansing mode.
Master.
Let's see. Let's go ahead and attack that.
Ouch! That hurt!
And then let's go ahead and
All magic guns can be kind of finicky. Sweep the legs.
hit that, and hit that, and hit that. It could be evolving also. There's really no reason not to evolve. Next we have a game on Steam here that's a bunch of Asian characters, 2020. Looks like it's an RPG Maker style game. English was not supported, 4.19, Chinese only. Nothing wrong with this, it just looks like an NES RPG Maker game, which in modern time is just not reasonable to be selling that on Steam. Here we have an alpha for a game called Happy Humble's Burger Farm, which this maybe is a horror game. Yeah, they're calling it an adventure simulation psychological horror. It's free, English full audio. Just really a demo. Seems like we still have a lot of variety between things being labeled as alphas and demos and other things. I wanted to mention the insanity that Borderlands 3's different units they have here. There is the standard edition for Borderlands 3 that gets you the base game. Then the next level edition that gets you the final form cosmetic packs, which I assume that's just a improvement on graphics. Then the Super Deluxe Edition, which gets you the deluxe bonus content and Season Pass 1, but clearly they did not sell enough, so they introduced a Season Pass 2 and a gold weapon skin pack that is the Ultimate Edition. They also now have no way at all that they would be able to introduce
Could never set foot in the sun.
a larger edition, because they'd have to do something like a badass Ultimate Edition
The legs.
or something to
You're too strong.
indicate there's more. Also, I seriously doubt there's a way that they could introduce interesting. We have Holy Sanctuary. I haven't actually looked at any of those in a while. On any of the little avatars. Let's see. But yeah. I think there's a decent amount of evidence to say that the Epic Store exclusivity did not sell the... Yeah, this looks like this has been redrawn also. Let's see, do we have anybody here we really care about? Because we've unlocked a decent amount of these little avatars, and we haven't changed any of them. This also kind of goes to show how there is a little too much insane fandom going on here, that they think an average player would care about avatars. It feels like they probably should just have allowed you to get these as art pieces, and then you could have used any image you want as your own personal avatar. But then I guess you could upload something pornographic as your personal avatar, so then they wouldn't be able to show it to other people, and then that kind of defeats the purpose. But yeah, none of these characters seem like really worth changing it to. And then we haven't gotten any new characters, of course, for any of the avatars. That would be definitely a big change, as if they started giving out a few more of these, particularly older ones of these characters that we know are floating around. But they're particularly stingy as far as that. And then, let's see, card backs. I don't even know what the master's menu is. Can't even get to it. And flags, there won't really ever be any new flags. And flares, we really haven't unlocked any new flares. These all are just based around the they're mostly based around the progress you would make. Let's see, rankings. What does the rankings button do? Let's see. Guess this would just show you where you are. But this probably is not telling me where I am so much as it's telling me where the winners. Yeah, see, there's an evolve button. That's what disappeared. And then we made progress on the battle pass, and still feel like we'll get maybe desperate at the end and buy the battle pass to get a whole bunch of skins and gold. The real marker here is rank 69, pretty much, to rank 80. Like, if I don't make it up to rank 69 by December 28th, forget it. If I make it to rank 80, it makes a lot of sense. At a certain level, if you get to rank 100, that's the maximum. I'm still very iffy on this whole Battle Pass idea and whether I'm going to stick with Shadowverse that long. That being said, I'm not really feeling like I'd leave Shadowverse just because the Japanese version is censoring to the same level that the global version was. I imagine that might mean a lot of Japanese people leave, but that may have been happening anyways. Alright, we need to hurry up. This is going to be a long Friday. Here we have a game called String Abyss, which is tagged as a Lovecraftian underwater RPG. Okay, it's suffering from a little bit of dark screenshot syndrome, but I'm willing to put this on the follow list and see.
Bear the past, but seize the future.
See, can I not put it on the follow list? My follow list button does not want to work. And I wonder if that's my ad blocker and all the modifications I've done to this page, or if that's just the follow list button's broken. String Abyss right now is 21, 24, bunch of languages. Yeah, I'll leave that to deal with later. Next, we have a game on Steam here called October Night Games, which is player versus player, player versus event. This seems to me to be kind of a low effort experience. I don't know how you could have like a paper cutout, hand-drawn art style and make a game like that. To me, it almost seems like it's a point-and-click adventure instead of being tagged as so many other things. $14.39, single-player online PvP, LAN PvP. Russian, Chinese, and German, and English, which is suspect. Yeah, I just don't see a game here. I really don't. I see a bunch of random stuff. I could be wrong. Anytime I say that, I imagine. Next, we have a game on Steam called Brew and Brawl, Gnomes vs. Dwarves. The idea of potentially having to brew alcohol to increase your creepers in this kind of automated Dota style game is a slightly funny concept, but then you probably have a trouble selling a game if it has alcohol in it. This is $12.99. It says it's single player, but almost certainly it isn't. And it definitely doesn't look like there's much other going on here. It's just trying to take a general concept of something that could be something that could be like a tower defense game and adjust it slightly, and make it more like a MOBA game, which in a lot of ways I think some of the MOBA games do have a major tower defense element to them. Tech Raptor has a review for the game Paper Beast Folded Edition, which this art looks interesting. I'm not sure how much of a game you have here. Paper thin puzzles. That's one of it. They gave it 7.5. Paper Beast Folded Edition is like a well-crafted piece of origami. Beautiful to look at, but paper thin on interactivity. Pros are imaginative world designs, but they lack puzzle depth. Imaginative world and ideas that lack puzzle depth. Great use of sound design that loses some charm outside of VR. Essentially excellent non-verbal storytelling with a mediocre sandbox mode. And then good art house style experience.
Cleansing mode.
Best of luck to you.
The light will find you.
So yeah, that doesn't sound like a game that's particularly that useful. Next we have a game on Steam called Dominion 2, which here we have the screenshots not loading. It looks to me like it's just a neon box game. Maybe it's supposed to be like Tron Light Cycles. Apparently it's coming soon, so I don't even know why I'm talking about it. Bunch of language, all having full audio support.
All magic guns can be kind of finicky.
Let's do that. I can make that a 5 and kill that. And I think that's pretty much the best bet to do.
My stomach.
So yeah, Dominion not coming up. Next we have Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on Steam, which apparently this just came out and it's already mixed. There were many instances of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and this one doesn't seem like they have any of the hosts' identities. Like there was several like daytime TV, somewhat famous celebrities who hosted this, and I don't think Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is on TV anymore, and I have no idea who this character is even supposed to be if he's just looks like a made-up character. The problem with all the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire games is that you're literally just sitting in a chair being asked questions. It's a very boring experience without all the live editing and music and improvement of tension, increasement of tension that they pull.
Do you know my master?
But yeah, it's actually a fairly short experience also when you're not actually having to agonize on whether you're gonna actually win $1 million or not. $1 million is not even a lot of money for a primetime game show, which also kind of kills it. It's $26.99. That's a ridiculous price for this kind of game. This really should be a $10 game minimum. I mean maximum. Apparently it has some online player versus player. I don't know how you could even have online player versus player. The Battle Royale mode. Which, oh, okay, that's an interesting idea, I suppose. God-awful voice acting, apparently. Voice acting and 3D animations are awful. There's really no reason why a game like this shouldn't, first and foremost, look good on PC if you're going to bring it to PC, but then second, also have a kind of massive support on mobile gaming too. Like, because it just does not make sense that somebody would want to play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire only on their PC, and that they're not going to make it visually appealing. See, this is published by Microids, who publish a lot of things. There's quite a lot of Microids games. It's developed by a company called Appeal Studios. And the only other game they have is something that isn't even out yet called The Blue Coats North and South.
Is it edible? Only one way to find out. This
So maybe this developer just needed some money and they shoved out a licensed game and they wanted to get it out and on Steam so then they could do better. Okay. Banish all the cards in my deck. What is the point of doing that? I don't know. Next we have a game called Epitaph. Is that how you spell Epitaph? Let's see. It's player versus player. Seems like a weird, almost placement group battle system. Looks a little bit like inspired by Darkest Dungeon with some animations. Although, honestly, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of variety or a lot of detail in these animations, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is some kind of like knockoff Chinese attempt. It's $11.69. It's English full audio.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Guess I can put it on the fall list and we'll see if people like it. We'd have to really figure out what the single player versus the online player is. Single player puzzle mode. Yeah, so it does seem to be a little bit more focused on the online.
Power of mortality.
Making slow bits of progress as far as just leveling up our character. And I'm just going to stick with Warcraft for the moment. We may look at the mission next game. Next we have a game on Steam called Timeline Traveler 2 Dream, which this does look like an interesting idea in which you might script a character and then have them play it back. I've seen that happen in a couple other games, and sometimes it works. Like Braid kind of did that in some of its levels. This is early access for $2.39. It's English and traditional Chinese. What I really would want to see is Timeline Traveler 1, which came out just a small amount of time earlier. Well, it does kind of seem like visually Timeline Traveler 2 is an improvement. And visually here you have some probably pre-bought assets and an improvement on here, so I'll put this on the fall list. But that almost certainly would be just kind of a funny journey to say, well, here's a Chinese developer that is actually trying to learn how to program games and trying to make some money on at the same time, which I can't inherently hate that idea of feeding yourself on your experiments. Like if somebody paid me for all the home lab Linux server stuff I do, that would be amazing. But yeah, because a lot of what I do is almost like it's actual laboratory science, experimentation and such. A lot of it might be redundant, and much like most laboratory science, you either are being paid and told what to do by a like pharmaceutical company or something, or you're having the right proposals and get grants from colleges or other groups.
I could never set foot in the sun.
And yeah, a lot of the experimental scientists do have to end up teaching or working at a college on top of doing what they really would want to do. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called One Night on Halloween. Another game right in time. What's funny is this has kind of an interesting manga appearance, although you can definitely see the problem of having sweaters that have such a detailed pattern that's not really how any smart mangaka would have chosen the outfits. If they were going to give them sweaters, they would have made it a solid color, and that would have been that. But yeah, this does feel like a Japanese manga or a Korean manhwa. It's $3.99, short visual novel, English only, 9 endings, 1 to 2 hours per route. So fairly cheap game, but no full audio, but also not likely to have a bunch of not a lot of people are going to talk about it, I imagine. See, I just put 2 in the effects and it didn't do anything.
Do you know my master?
Let's
Cleansing
go
mode.
and kill that. That.
Unbelievable.
And that.
No.
Didn't end the turn. You also run into a problem, certainly, where I don't think Japanese people or Korean people, for that matter, I don't think they go really wild for Halloween. Particularly this year, nobody should be going wild for Halloween, but yeah, it's being most years Halloween is subverted by even things like Carnival and Fat Tuesday, as far as people celebrating it, and certainly this is nowhere as big a deal as like Valentine's Day or Christmas, or Black Friday itself is a de facto separate holiday of capitalist consumption. Do this,
Victory is in my orbit.
and then we need just 1,
Found your weakness.
and then
Begin. I've got you all figured
go ahead
out.
and hit that,
So obvious.
and hit that.
Bears further study. This bears further study.
I wanted to look at this Gamma Sutra article talking about how Control and Hitman 3 are heading to switch via the cloud, via the Power Cloud streaming. IO Interactive and Remedy are keen to tap on Switch's player base and bring their heavy-duty titles to the platform.
With your lifeblood.
The Nintendo Store page explains players must download a free launcher application to test the game for a limited amount of time. This will allow them to check their internet connection is stable enough to run the game. A Nintendo account is also required to access the cloud service, and a permanent internet connection must be maintained for the duration of any play session. Which, certainly there are a lot of questions about what if your internet drops out for a brief second. Does that mean you completely lose all progress, or does it gracefully shut down? Those are things people would want to know.
Sleep.
How much force can you withstand?
Let's see.
Sweep the legs.
I failed.
Can't move, can you?
Apparently, Resident Evil 7 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey have also already been streaming properties. So apparently this is something that has happened before, and I just hadn't heard of it. Which, that's an interesting idea, but it certainly also goes to show how the Switch player base kind of needs to be forced into a more powerful unit, and there is just a huge argument at this point about how big physically consoles are getting to have to the point where you might as well just have a computer. Both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, great examples of that, versus the Switch being small and portable, and then just being completely underpowered already, even a couple years into it. We'll try Havencraft, since we lost a couple times. Next we have a game on Steam here called FIFO's Night, which says it's a 3D platformer where you kind of play as a ghost. I really don't see a reason why. For as often as there are like horror-like first-person shooters that come out anytime around the year, I don't know why we don't see more like cutesy play as a Casper like character come out around at any time around the year. Let's see. This is free to play, which is weird. It's just free. Okay, well, I just covered 2 games that are free. I'll put this on the wish list. There's no reason to really go any further than that. Like, I could put it on the fall list, certainly, and see if it gets enough reviews, and then put it on the wish list, and perhaps that is the smarter move. But at the end of the day, free and interesting looking is really good enough for most people, and should be good enough for me. As far as, yeah, check it out. Although, it is always a little difficult to justify playing a free game, because the consumer advice is immediately just go install it, just play it. Unless there's just somebody out there that really wants a curated Steam library, which even at that point, that would be fairly ridiculous, and you probably should just instead, if you want to curate your Steam library, just curate your library and have different folders. Don't actively try to make a smaller list of games you own. And inherently, if you were trying to curate your library that way, based on owning only a few games, you would probably at some point have to start all over again and make a whole different account and buy the games multiple times, and that would be just straight up insanity. Anyways, we got a game on Steam here called Bloodland, which just looks like an asset flip player versus player game. Early access, free to play, online PvP, English full audio allegedly. I wouldn't be surprised if there actually is some level of speech in that. Let's do this, and then do this, and then in the turn. Next we have the Last Spell Prologue, which almost certainly is a demo. This is tagged as a roguelite game. It's free to play for a game called The Last Spell, English only. Still not really sure why the Steam screenshots take so long to load in, or why they give up so fast. I've really bent over backwards to speed up that process, though, for everything else, and really is just the Steam store and their servers. Could be, frankly, though, that I just open far too many tabs and I get deprioritized. That could be the case, certainly. Deprioritized by their web server in it, so that the web screenshots don't load. But if you would think if that was the policy, they would also do the same for the videos, and the videos load fine. Strike, deal 1 damage. 1 damage, and then another damage. So he actually does 2 damage. They don't make that as easy to recognize. Next we have a game on Steam called Positron X, which looks like a first-person shooter with robots and maybe some demons. It's $17.99. It's being compared to Binding of Isaac Rebirth, English only. This is a game that can go on the fall list. There might be an experience there. Or it might just be a lot of nothing. Let's play that. Alright, now how can we kill this? We can start with this.
Prayer is your plumage. Don't give up.
Do that. And then we can do that.
お姉ちゃんなのに
Then we can play that.
Pounce!
And we can do that.
You wouldn't.
Next we have a game on Steam here called LA Monsters, and it was flashing a lot of flashing lights there. Sorry for that. This looks interesting as an art style, but I'm fairly certain that this is a really low effort visual novel type experience.
Samurai does not.
It's free. Man, the flashing lights though. English Valani, I gotta say just no to this game because I feel like this is gonna potentially cause seizures in somebody. I don't want to have to potentially put out seizure warnings on videos. I'm not personally susceptible to any of that, but
The
I'm
real battle
also not gonna actively try and hurt somebody. That's... Oh darn it, it's this freaking card, Steadfast Samurai. I hate this card.
Well, aren't you something?
Look right. My dear old home.
Let's see. Gamatsu has the Famitsu sales update. See, lots of Nintendo Switch stuff selling. Suppose it is also worth mentioning that Sony is in final talks to acquire Crunchyroll, which might be kind of amazing, but it might not really mean much either, because much like the Hulu situation, a lot of content left Hulu once the people who owned Hulu changed. I imagine a lot of the anime on Crunchyroll might very well disappear, and I feel like Crunchyroll in general probably already has some of this as a problem, and there does seem like there's 2 or 3 different services you would have to see all the anime you want to, and there's still just going to be some anime that you can't see as early as you would like, and you're going to end up
Any questions?
making that decision as far as whether you're going to pirate anime.
Whoops. Guess I got too close.
See, is there anything new here? Like the newest game is Cadence of Hyrule for Nintendo Switch in rank 24. Every other sale is not even a new game. Yep. I imagine Japan is fairly just slow and kind of locked down at the time. Although, I've also heard people make the argument that Japan was never in full lockdown, and like, okay, one of these can't possibly be true. I definitely did hear of them being in lockdown, and I definitely personally have seen games being delayed and games not selling that much. I imagine that one of the things to understand about the Japanese governments is that they have a lot of local city authorities that have a lot of power. So I imagine it is
I bring to you serenity.
it is the case that no official word was ever said to tell every single person in Japan to lock down, but it was just expected that they would do that, and they probably did it of their own accord, as much as the Japanese do anything of their own accord, since they always feel obliged to follow any perceived authority, no matter what. There's there's a level of understanding that certainly would have to be there, because I'm sure there were small country towns that never went into lockdown that have like 5 people in them. Next we have a game on Steam here called Mesmeratu, which looks very weird, but there might be a game here. but it might not be a game either. It looks like it's a frustration platformer. It looks like it might be a joke game. It's $7.99, English full audio. I'm gonna put it on the fall list. I probably would have to reevaluate it later and say no, there's just too much weirdness, or there's just too much platforming. Either which of those could be major reasons as to why I wouldn't want to bother to play a game like that.
Figure it out.
Tech Raptor has an article here. Resident Evil 3 Switch Cloud version is probably on the way, which, yeah, that makes some sense. A little bit of speculation, probably more than actual news, but sometimes you don't see it very much in video games, but in other senses, you'll hear journalists speculate on something because they secretly know on what they call background information that something has happened, but they won't disclose that they have a source. Or background information is also
You were done for.
often used as a way of confirming what another source might say. So you know you're not just being lied to. Let's see. Analyzing artifact, withdraw a card. Let's see if we can do this.
All magic guns can be kind of finicky.
Begin.
Salvation surely awaits.
And yeah, we put that here. And can't evolve anymore.
Play my part.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Fade, which looks like it's a dark screenshot game. Here you have some images that are probably just asset flips in a black background. Like this, for instance. Great example. This is probably just pre-bought. $7.99, English only. Nothing impressive there. Alright, what can we do? How did they send everything back to my hand? I could do this, and that's probably the right move. Yeah.
Is in my orbit.
That's the only move I think I can do. Next, we have a game that's Asian characters called Duel. This looks like a fairly low effort stickman fighting game. English not supported 324, Chinese only. At least a game like that is being fairly obvious about what it is. It's not trying to be deceptive. Next, we have a game that's just a bunch of Asian characters that looks like it's probably a Chinese railroad simulator or war simulator. I guess not railroads. $5.39, Japanese only. Oh, so I was wrong about that. Yeah, this looks like it's some kind of number-based, like, war simulator. Strategy type game. Okay. Do I have any way to save the day now? Okay, we could evolve this. We need to evolve that. Okay. Can we do anything that would add resonance? That.
All magic guns can be kind of finicky.
It's the small
in life.
And see, the only thing I could really do is like this.
My hands are tied.
And then I'll just lose. Next we have a game called Evergate Keys Adventure. I feel like there was a game that already like this. Puzzle platformer, 2D puzzle platformer.
Praying hands.
It's a demo for a $20 game called Evergate. I think that's why I recognize this. Yeah, this came out September 1st. I remember looking at this and just saying, yeah, this is not quite what I'm looking for. It does seem fairly obvious that Steam is heavily encouraging more people to make demos. Even games that have already come out or recently come out are being apparently asked to make demos. I just hope that the other shoe does not drop on this and demos somehow equal you can't get a 2-hour refund for a game. I wouldn't be super upset if a lot of low effort games were told they have to make demos or they'll be removed from the storefront, but some people would definitely be upset about that. And that certainly would take Steam down the path of being like YouTube and just trying to change what it has been as a storefront. Well, for better or worse, Steam has to kind of maintain all games that are listed that it can maintain. Next we have a game on Steam here called Maniac Path, which seems like it's a low effort beat 'em up shooter, GTA type clone, GTA 1 type clone. $1.79 English Russian. Yep. I probably could and should have curated some of these games. Next we have a game on Steam called Allotropy, which looks like a horror first-person shooter asset flip game. $13.99 English only. The problem here is you just have a kind of generic life bar and you don't have many enemies at all around here, which these screenshots, if they could highlight a game, the best parts of a game, they should. And if they are highlighting the best parts of the game, then that goes to show that the game isn't much. Next we have a game here called Spinning Kid. This is a world rotation puzzle game. I don't think that there's enough of a gameplay concept here that I'd want to play. Even if you are trying to like spin just this ball onto that point and not have any of the other balls hit it, that just feels like they'd get very frustrating very fast. $5.39, 10 achievements, bunch of languages. They're comparing it to Limbo and Fez, which I would completely disagree with both of those comparisons. Next we have a game called Tram Sim, which is a tram simulator, obviously. Odd that the graphics look so good, but also you kind of know that these are asset flip things. Yeah, I just don't think there's a game here that really people would want to play. $34.99, third-party DRM, third-party EULA, English and German. And the funny thing is, I think there probably is a decent number of audience of people who are just obsessed with trains/trams that they actually would be interested in that. And in all fairness, having some 3D models of people getting on the railroad does help add some visual polish for normal people, but normal people probably don't care at all about these types of games. So, and yeah, half the time when I see software like this, I wonder if this is just somebody who made a simulator to help people actually design trains and tram stations and lines, and they're reselling it as a low effort game. Storm. And then that. And then that, I guess.
You were done
All
for.
this is going to do is get me a cheap hit. Cheap hit for 4 damage. Next we have a game called Space Station Tycoon, which generally I don't want to play space games. And being a tycoon running a space station
Let me
doesn't
share my wisdom.
really make a lot of sense to me. $11.99 English only.
I envy you.
Yeah, you can kind of tell what we're not seeing here, even though we are getting a lot of games coming out around Halloween, is we're not seeing amazingly good games still. We are definitely in that position where these are just bottom of the barrel games trying to fill in a empty time frame, as none of the AAA games are coming out either, and everything's getting delayed. Here we have a game called Dopamine, which is apparently a
I bring unto
bit of a
you
laser
serenity.
game,
Time for me to
laser
prove
box
myself.
puzzling game. Although it seems like some of the lasers actually do explode some kinds of boxes. And weird that you have controls here. It's early access, 764. It almost feels like it would be a VR game. I'm a sucker for these types of games, so I'll put this on the fall list, but even though this has a decent amount of visual polish, I really wouldn't be surprised if it's not that good. A lot of the laser box puzzle games are not that good. Gamatsu has an article. The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 are coming to Switch in summer of 2021, June, July, June and July in Asia, which is kind of weird for them to be re-releasing Trails of Cold Steel without really addressing some of the previous games in the series, but it does oddly feel like that their argument is you should start with Trails of Cold Steel 1 and you can just miss out on all the other storyline. And maybe I've gotten some bad advice from TechRaptor when they said you really needed to play the previous Trails series, and you can just play Trails of Cold Steel 1, but I wouldn't be surprised if you really do need to play the previous games. And that is a problem with a lot of JRPGs, is that you get locked into potentially having to cover a ridiculous amount of content just to be up to date. We have a Gamatsu article. Dreamcom has acquired the Wizardry copyright and trademark rights, and a new title will be developed, which is interesting. Although I am not sure what Wizardry is. It's a game. I recognize the name barely, but I'm not sure if it was a like text-based adventure game or what. Let's see. They're a mobile game developer, Dreamcom is. They worked on the Sky RPG and mobile versions of Everybody's Golf, Derby Stallion Masters, Chocoto Farms, Digimon Re-Arise, Kira Fantasy, which was Kirara Fantasy, which was developed for Aniplex, so that was an anime game. So, yeah, we may see a new Wizardry game, and that might be a good thing, that might be a bad thing. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Casebook of Arne, which looks like one of these horror RPG Maker style games. It's tagged as RPG Maker. Honestly, I'd probably label it more a visual novel if any of these screenshots would load. Really gotta learn how to come over here and just give it a brief second and then possibly come over here. But even if a screenshot's not loading, you do have to cycle through all of, you probably could go forward and then back and then forward. But even that doesn't seem like that really works. In fact, in this case, seems like the images don't really want to load at all. Yeah, looking at this definitely feels more like a visual novel than an RPG maker. Let's see. And this other character is just taking their sweet time. And none of these trailers really emphasizing the actual gameplay. This game is desperately trying to hide the fact that it's a RPG Maker game. Which honestly, in all fairness, I think most RPG Makers games should do that. Let's see. $8.99, English, Japanese, Chinese. I'm going to put this on the fall list, but I suspect heavily we'll get fairly negative reviews. Eventually, if we get any reviews at all. Because I just don't think there's a real audience there. Let's do that. Then do
Small
that.
things in life.
Let's see. Next we have a game called The Pacifist Great and Final Nightmare, and we're seeing some major dark screenshot syndrome here. It's a good name though. The Pacifist Great and Final Nightmare might inspire like a story about somebody finding giant machines of war, nuclear bombs, things like that. This is 59 cents, English only. It has numbers for the achievements, which probably means it's an achievement game. It's a real shame that a good name like that is wasted on a low effort game. Although almost certainly that is something from just some book or some quote from somebody that I just don't recognize. Because I doubt a low effort asset flip video game designer would also be on the level of being capable of or spending the effort. They're probably capable, that just probably wouldn't spend the effort to try and name a game interestingly. My internet decided to go down, which probably means my watchdog at that point decided to go down and reset it. But my watchdog has been working, or at least not causing any problems lately, so that seems to work now, looking at the number of packets coming in. I did have a bit of a problem with my electricity, which that was super frustrating because that was definitely a thing I wouldn't have wanted to have to call an electrician for. I flipped a light switch at one end of my garage, which is usually inaccessible because it's full of garbage, but I was moving some furniture around into the garage, and I flipped this light switch and go, okay, well that light switch must turn something on, a light outside that I would want on. And then I went and flipped the light switch on the other side of my garage, and it blew the circuit. In the meantime, I had installed LED lights, and there had been an electrician to install LED lights there. So what had happened almost certainly is the light switch on one end had been wired as a three-way switch, and the three-way switches are just not smart technology in modern electrical, at least the way they used to do it, where they would put the electricity either on the neutral wire or the ground wire and run the electricity the wrong way. And the other switch on a three-way switch would be able to adjust for that and not cause a problem. Clearly, when the electrician installed the LEDs, he didn't wire it in any way expecting there to be a three-way switch, and it very possibly was never wired right, because this is all wiring that the previous owner of my house did and didn't know what he was doing. So yeah, unfortunately, after moving the furniture into the garage and locking the door, I had to go back and unlock the door and go back in the garage, unflip the light switch I flipped, and then the circuit breaker stopped tripping. Thank goodness for having good circuit breakers, of course.
Is in my orbit.
Found your weakness.
Let's go ahead and hit that in the turn.
Can you?
Next we have a game on Steam called Pacer, which looks like a F-Zero style racing game. Looks fairly visually polished. It's mostly positive. $33.99. Single player and online player. Full audio in English, which I'm not sure how much audio would actually be there. Yeah, this definitely feels like one of those racing games, so I'll put that on the fall list. Although in all fairness, I probably should not even bother to put it on the fall list and just say, hey, this should be on the wish list, and save myself some time, because yeah, this looks fine. And this must have been a game that had been in early access and it just came out of early access. So yeah, I'll put that on the wish list. I need to be more assertive, certainly, in my decisions, and try to be better at ensuring I know what I'm... trying to be better about optimizing my time, and instead of just putting everything on the fall list, to go back and look at a game a second time. Yeah, it seems like the network is working, but it's still being fairly slow.
It's the small things in life.
Okay. How can we do this now? Hit that. Oh, this is going to be annoying, isn't this?
I could never set foot in the sun. So obvious.
This is just killing me.
Can you?
Next we have a game on Steam here called Claire's Cruising Cafe, which is one of these cooking games.
Let's
It's
play.
$5.59, English, German, and Russian. We see a lot of these. I never feel like they're much of a game worth mentioning.
My blade shall guide you.
I'm just gonna get wrecked here. Unless I can figure out some trick. Which maybe I can figure out some trick, but I don't know. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Mage's World, The Wizard's Stone, which looks like it's kind of a platformer adventure game. Kind of feels like Rogue Legacy if Rogue Legacy was more of a platformer, more of a Zelda, Mario game. It's English only. It's early access for $2.99. I'm going to put this on the fall list. But there is a level of visual and polish that could easily be missing here. Now, I'm not doing anything with my internet, by the way. Like, there's no uploads, I think, that are going on or anything like that, so...
A place to
if
Come on!
if something's going wrong with my internet, it is solely and completely because of.
Big trouble now.
I could never set foot in the sun.
See, well, we do that. That kills that. And if we do that, that does that.
A place to call, a place to call.
Roads converge in the end.
See. Rush. 4, 4. Yeah, pretty much nothing I do is gonna win now. Let's see.
I'll play my part.
All
Do that
roads
part.
converge in the end.
All of that part here.
How much force can you withstand?
Do
Sweep the
that.
legs.
In the turn.
Can you?
If I had managed to have a few more play points,
Let's play.
this wouldn't be able to attack.
Let's play.
But I've lost.
Let's play.
Here we have a game called God of Flame, which looks like it's a Chinese Diablo-like clone. English not supported, free to play. Doesn't look particularly terrible, but we've seen lots of them, and since English is not supported, that really means nothing. Next, we have a game on Steam called Farmer and Tree. I really should have curated some of this. This clearly is a mobile Chinese game that's been ported, free. Yeah, and don't even know really the motivation of that, but I guess in general I just don't know the motivation of putting your game on for free on Steam. In most cases, since so many publishers never make a second game, and there would just not be a recognition in most people's minds of the fact that this is the same developer that gave us that free game 2 years earlier. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. The Japanese rail sim Journey to Kyoto for PS4 has a trailer and gameplay. It's due out December 10th. And yeah, this definitely looks a lot like the tram sim game we just looked at. They pretty much all look the same. Let's see. I need to put more attention and focus on these decks and figure out really what I am trying to do with the cards, because very often it is just like I have no idea what I'm doing with these cards. And very rare, we don't get daily quests like we would in Hearthstone that say play a certain number of amulets or play a certain number of like drain characters. Analyzing artifacts, ancient artifacts.
Behold the part. Fire right meow. I can't figure it out.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Sphere Invasion, which is obviously a low-effort game.
Today we'll
Looks like a
put some
tower
heavy
defense for
scriptures.
$5.99 English only. Next, we have a game on Steam called Flee. Really feels like they let the floodgates open as far as just bad games at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of game developers wanted their games out before Halloween. This looks terrible. $9.99 English only. Let's see. OpenCritic has an article here. Square Enix has introduced the world and characters of Final Fantasy 16, which, by the looks of it, it seems like Final Fantasy 16 is going to be a little bit more fantasy based, a little bit less let's get in a car and go on the joyride. But yeah, like the previous game. Ideally, we would also like to see a lot more story in Final Fantasy 16 than we did in 15. Rush. Play this and evolve this. And that's not a bad idea.
Begin.
I've got a brilliant idea. Phew!
And that concludes today's sermon.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Don't Die Douche, which almost certainly is a troll game. There is some elements here that are inspired by other games, but it definitely feels like a troll game. Like,
In the hearts of all.
these are definitely references and screenshots to other games that were possible. Recognizable. This is $9.99 English only. Almost certainly it's a huge frustration platformer. Even by standard frustration platformer scales, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more difficult than that. Alright, we have 1 damage. Where if I do this,
Victory is in my orbit.
and then do this,
Salvation surely awaits.
and then just go ahead and do this, and then return.
Ooh, can you?
Next we have a game called The Dark Pictures Anthology Little Hope, which it does feel like they are putting out these horror anthology games fairly quickly. And in all fairness, this is a horror game that does look visually polished enough that it makes a good argument as far as it coming out before Halloween. I don't know why it needs to come out the day before Halloween though, instead of much earlier. You can see this is very positive, and so I can just put it on the wish list. There is also a bundle here for Man of Medan, so there is a decent argument. Instead of me playing like Walking Dead, Telltale games, I should play these Dark Pictures Anthology, and they are at this point actually managing to make an anthology actually be an anthology, where in the past I didn't have
In the sun.
full faith that that's really what was going on, or that was really what was going to happen. There we go.
Crud. Ooh, my stomach.
In the turn. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Activision Blizzard beats its forecast with $1.95 billion in its Q3 net revenue. So despite all these people leaving, it does seem like Activision Blizzard is still making plenty of money. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has a job listing here. A company called Question, which I've never heard of, is looking for a level designer. I've never heard of Question, and I don't think that there's any games that they've made or published, if I was to guess. I don't want to do the research. Also, this job is remote, which, in all fairness, almost every video game journalist job, no, video game creation was, yeah, almost all of them should be. Remote jobs. Okay.
Do you know my master?
How do we want to do this now? Evolve this. And then hit that.
My king.
And think our best bet is to do that
Master.
and that.
So obvious.
My king.
4 more turns and we get this done. Hopefully whatever this does wins the game for me. Next we have a game on Steam here called Vagrant Sword, which
That's one wall.
kind of looks like an NES game set in like a feudalistic Japan area. It looks a little too simplistic though. It doesn't look like there's enough here. $2.09, English only. Just not enough of a modern variety as far as mentality. Tech Raptor, I almost called it Techno Raptor. Wonder if I've done that before. Tech Raptor has a article here. WayForward expands its indie publishing with 13AM's Dawn of Monsters. WayForward, the maker of the Shantae series, now trying to get more into indie publishing, which often that feels like that becomes this weird distraction where they stop making as good of products, but there is also a possibility that that's just a side thing in the next Shantae game, which I assume they'll just keep on making Shantae games. Right. 2 Portal Craft ballers from your deck into play. Interesting.
I've been beaten.
And
Do you know my master? I'll play my part.
what's funny is if that's going to put 2 Portal Craft characters into play, then we either need to kill a bunch of characters or we're going to start.
I can do.
And, well, I just got wrecked there. Whenever resonance becomes active, ward. Right, well, let's do this. See, that doesn't destroy artifacts, so the idea of this card synergizing with this card is just not true. And I think that is part of the problem with a lot of the cards in my decks is that they just don't work the way I would think they would want to work. Whereas in Magic the Gathering in particular with its craziness, or Yu-Gi-Oh with its craziness, there's usually the cards work the way you would think they would work, and Shadowverse seems to be more weird or harder to understand. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Ubisoft, quote, undertook profound actions to address the studio culture concerns, says the CEO. I'm sure that satisfies absolutely no one, and Yves Guillemot obviously doesn't want any of the blame, but has been taking all the profit.
Battle systems engaged.
Yes.
Back to the fight.
Yes. Do we want to try and protect ourselves, or do we want to kill?
Yield.
Oh, crud.
Like, the only thing I could do is hope that they ran out of cards, and I'm almost certainly going to lose before they draw 18 more cards.
Sugar's the best cure
Honestly,
for
I just don't think there's anything
We
more to say about the Ubisoft issue until there's more to say about the Ubisoft issue.
Tremble, for judgment is yet to come. You look well.
I don't go to GameIndustry.biz anytime lately, so I haven't cleaned any out of this up. But Todd Howard has the next generation is about access. Todd Howard, of course, being the main focused person that everybody idolizes as far as Bethesda. So yeah, there's access makes a lot of sense considering how that is Microsoft's focus, is to just always make it so that you can play your games wherever Microsoft exists, whether that's on Windows 10 or Xbox Games Pass. I wouldn't even be surprised if we do start to see just more and more instances of Microsoft games showing up on the PlayStation or in the Switch. I don't know if any Microsoft games actually have so far been on the PlayStation.
You look well.
Some Microsoft games will show up on the PlayStation, and we'll just have to see. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Basketing, which is just balls bouncing a basketball into baskets. Early access for 59 cents English only. It's an interesting little student tech demo, but not something that really should be on Steam, which inherently that's what always seems to happen, is that we have these little student tech demos put on Steam.
Reflect upon your choices.
Yeah. Here we have an article from Gamasutra. Stillfront has acquired the collectible card game developer Evergate for $1.37 million. I don't know what card game. They developed titles like Draken Lords and the Horus Heresy Legions, which, yeah, we always seem to see more and more collectible card games, and only a few of them are really worth mentioning. Let's see. Like, I've done like the ideal scenario here, and it still has not worked for me.
Power of mortality.
So yeah, neither one of these unlimited decks are particularly good. Seem to be dropping about 64% of all frames, which seems like a lot. But whatever, we'll keep going. TechRaptor has an article here. Far Cry 6 and Rainbow Six Quarantine have been delayed. I don't know if I even knew Rainbow Six Quarantine was in development. But yeah, we will certainly just see more and more delays. TechRaptor has this article. I think we mentioned this. Minecraft goats arrive as an experimental Bedrock beta feature, which I don't know how specifically goats are going to change the game. They probably won't change the game much at all, frankly. Here we have a game on Steam called Schlag den Star, which seems to be some kind of just low effort German game show. English was not supported, $34.99 German. It's weird to have two game shows at the same time, like game show spin-off video games. It's kind of weird to have game show spin-off video games in general. There was definitely some of those that existed. Let's see if we actually can click on this article. TechRaptor has an article here. Everspace 2 has been delayed to avoid a Cyberpunk 2077 clash, which also inherently implies that if Cyberpunk 2077 delays again, then it will probably clash with somebody else, and nobody wants to compete with them. Although I guess with every delay, enthusiasm starts to turn more and more on against Cyberpunk. So after, if there was one more delay, it may not really matter, and you may just stick with your original launch date. Let's see. Here we have a Gamma Sutra article. The Lab Zero founder Mike Zaymont has been suspended for work on the Guilty Gear update. He was accused of abusing by former employees and players. Lab Zero, I suppose, was the guy. I'm thinking this is the guy who literally owned like Lab Zero and fired everybody because there's just like no way to go forward. They wanted to apparently buy him out of the company, and then they wanted to lowball him. You can take this story one way or the other, and I've been leaning to think that this might be very much just a cancel culture idea, and that whatever he's accused of, he may not be as guilty as they make it out for. This certainly hasn't been a story that a lot of people have brought in a lot of details and talked about publicly, at least from what I've heard. So it probably is a lot more nuanced than what they're making it out to be, as it often always is. Almost always is. But yeah, I imagine anybody and everybody that can disassociate with them is going to disassociate with them, and the Guilty Gear developers had already tried to disassociate with them, so I'm not sure that isn't just the same news getting repeated, frankly. And all these cancel culture stories really just like file a lawsuit, sue them, or file a police report, or shut up at a certain point. Like, nobody has the mental bandwidth to litigate everybody's little small petty complaint. If you hate your boss, you're the same as everyone else. The only difference is you have more Twitter followers, and you think that justifies you taking up people's attention, and it really doesn't with these cancel culture people. Maybe that's the wrong attitude. It very possibly is the wrong attitude, but it's just exhausting, certainly, to see all these cancel culture complaints. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Monster Soft, which looks like it might be a low effort asset flip game. Yeah, I'm not sure that there's something here. Early access free, but then $8.99 for a campaign, and then $2.69 for a Halloween skin pack. Yeah, I think we can kind of skip this, because this does seem like this is a scam more than anything. Selling your game for free, but then the campaign is $10. And that's deceptive. Gamatsu has an article here. Prey for the Gods launches in Q1 of 2021 for the PS4, 5, Xbox One, and PC. The Xbox Series version can't be confirmed at this time. Prey for the Gods was one we have heard about a couple times before. Let's see. What do we want to do? Did this one? And then this one. And then this one.
May you rest in peace.
Oh, this is the you win the game card.
The real battle begins.
Like you activate this 2 more times and you win the game. Next we have a game on Steam here called Retrowave Need for Speed Drift, which is almost certainly name confusion game, and it just looks really dark and doesn't look like a very interesting racing game in general, all in the darkness. It's early access, it's 59 cents. It's English only. Yeah. This makes a Resonant Seraph. Resonant Seraph is a summons a Seraph Lapis Glary B, which has the last words of winning the match. Okay. So, we need 4 damage per turn. Need to kill this first. And a ward. Can I do both of these? No. Can do that. And that saves me.
Change your
I can
heathen
attack
ways.
here and do no damage. So if I can just survive 1 turn, I might actually win here. I might actually win in an interesting way. Can attack 3 times per turn.
Order takes flight for a peaceful tomorrow.
Wish I had this card.
I can see the path to heaven.
I envy you.
So you just wrecked me there, which is crazy because I actually had a near win scenario there. You can see we're just falling further and further behind. Here we have a game on Steam called Spot the Dot, which is clearly a low effort clicker game, fast-paced clicker game for $1.99, English, Russian, Chinese. Surprise, no surprise there on that language selection. Let's see, here we have a game on Steam called Escape World Dilemma, which looks like it's a puzzle game, a lot like The Witness. It is kind of asset flippy, but I don't think I'd inherently hate that. I'm going to give it a fall list and give it a chance. It's early access, $11.99 English. $11.99 is a little expensive, but this is a fairly visual, although again, asset flippy game, puzzle game. Let's see. Let's do that. Do that and do that. Let's just see if we can get back to the card we needed. Yeah, Escape World Dilemma is going to need some reviews. Speaking of reviews, TechRaptor has a review for the game The Signifier, which also looks like it might be a bit of a puzzle adventure game. You give it a 7.0. A Signifier is a sign of something great. Its story is intriguing in the way it conceptualizes all its efforts is wonderful. That being said, the general presentation lets it down and lets it down somewhat, and the short playtime left me wanting much more. Pros are great theming, interesting writing, and immersive Mechanics cons are inconsistent controls and too short. Which, that's a weird review, certainly, which even at 7.0 still kind of makes me want to put that on the follow list.
Prepare to face judgment.
See. Next we have a game on Steam called Knuckler's Test Fight, which this is probably a demo of a player versus player game. Early access $11.99. It is also weird to have a puzzle game in early access. That seems unacceptable.
Prepare to face judgment. Death pounce!
Oh, come on! Dine it the horses!
Next we have a game on Steam here called The Legends of Eternal, which looks like an adventure game. Looks like a real game compared to so many others. It's already on my following list, so $19.99 is really expensive there. And that is a high price tag. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Tencent is shutting down PUBG Mobile in India following the government ban, which I don't think the Indian government's gonna undo that ban. And it's questionable if the ban was just because they hate China, or if it's generally they just hated the fact that so many people, so many of their kids were probably skipping school and playing PUBG all day. But at the core of it, the reason why a bunch of kids in India would be playing too much video games has a lot more to do with there just being a lot of people and not a lot of opportunity for employment or success in like growing your station in life in India. Right.
Resign yourself.
This.
There's sand in my eyes.
Let's see, what's this? If you have more evolution points, you take no damage in it rush. So I gotta do this.
It is not my place to show mercy. Resign yourself.
Do that.
Like a fallen leaf.
I envy you.
And still I lost. You have a game on Steam called Kingpins. This is from Sock Pop, where they flood the Steam market with video games. They haven't done too many lately, but we do fairly know that they are pretty bad. Let's keep it spicy, I suppose, and try something different. The massive amount of victories you need in these games is just insane. Compared to just how long it takes you to play a game and whether or not you're actually succeed at them, your odds of winning. So right now with my current decks, it definitely feels like it's very low odds of winning. TechRaptor has an article here. Sony reveals more details about the PlayStation 5 accessibility settings. I'm still hearing great things as to the new controller for the PlayStation 5. And this is a microphone. You would think people might be a little concerned about a microphone just being built into all controllers, period. But seems like that's not going to be an issue. It's going to have voice dictation. See. Screen reader feature, hearing impaired users, on-screen text. Assign, reassigning buttons, setting up closed captions. Those are all things that you definitely want to see. It's, in all fairness, they needed to focus on that a little bit, because remember that Microsoft accessibility controllers still exist, and without that, with that being in the mix, Microsoft was able to claim a lot more accessibility support than PlayStation
Things up.
did. Hmm. See, haptic feedback and adaptive triggers can be adjusted. That was a slight concern on my part. Certainly, I was a little afraid that the adaptive triggers that increase or decrease the amount of pressure in part or in whole for the entire throw of the triggers, which throw meaning like the first half might be very hard, and then at a certain point it might just get really soft, like you were squishing a grape or something. I did have a concern that that might turn into a kind of
Blessings upon you.
nightmare scenario where some games would just make it very, very difficult to pull the triggers, or people with weakness in their hands might have trouble, but they seem like they're going to be able to adjust that in some level. And that's all good news, but I would also argue that it's going to be all about games, and I'm still not really sure that the games are going to be there.
I go with the wind.
Then do this. Can't do anything else. TechRaptor has the Prime Gaming for November rewards, Star Mythological games. So, Victor of Ran, A Knight's Quest, Smoke and Sacrifice, Lethus, Path of Progress, and Orion Legacy of the Koryo Dan. All are going to be games you get for free. And then there's going to be some rewards and a lot of things that I'll just make sure I'm showing the list and not really mention them. None of them look amazingly interesting. It seems like the rewards are pretty bad for the Prime, and it's fairly difficult to say it's a good move to yeah, I don't know if it's really worth your efforts to have Prime just for the gaming. There needs to be other reasons to have Prime.
Should have been quicker.
Well, this is gonna stink, but that's the right way to move. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here on Xbox Series X and Series S. Launch live stream is set for November 10th. No big announcements planned. So yeah,
Is that you come home safe.
I imagine that is just going to be reiterating a lot of things that had already been talked about. Let's see. How can we do this? We probably need to do this. We probably need to do this.
Desert awaits.
And then
The real battle begins.
I'm ready for more. What do we
do
have here?
that.
Time to retreat.
Need some more turns to do this Union Burst. See, there's this
I'm waiting to get
game on Xbox called Legends of Aeternal for Xbox One. I wanted to research that because the image looked unrecognizable. I hadn't seen it before.
I have your heart
See
in
if it's
my
on
sights.
PC, which it may be,
Best
it
of
may
luck to
not.
you.
Okay. We do this, and it gives us ward. This could also give us some health. Interesting. See, this was part of the strategy to bring out this.
Let's speed things up.
I honor
Let's
thy
speed things
form.
up.
Let's see, we have a game on Steam here called Adam Robot World,
Stop!
which
Stop! No!
Adam is what
No!
the little robot anime was called in Japanese. But in the West they called them something else. No screenshots want to load. Let's do this.
The uncharted desert awaits.
This. And I think that's the best we can do.
To fill my tum-tums.
Okay. Hit that.
Time to retreat.
Can't evolve. Can't really do anything. Lost anyways. Yeah, Adam Robot World is now the screenshots are loading. Just doesn't seem like it's much of anything, just a kind of real-time strategy. $5.94, English and Chinese.
March on.
We've got so many games
I will
still.
never shatter.
Gamma Sutra has a blog here, a study on modern mobile design. Here we can see that Arcanite's game.
No! No!
Envy you.
Let's see. Here you go. The chibi style has become popular shorthand for aesthetic in RPG mobile games today. The chibi style existed far before mobile games were even a thing. They were doing that back with like All My Goddesses, Mini Goddesses, which is an anime in the early 90s. Let's try that again. I suppose it's worth mentioning that Genshin Impact update 1.1 adds 4 new characters and a new story chapter. This really is where a gacha game like Genshin Impact is really going to have to keep adding content non-stop. It felt like for a lot of people there was a decent chance you would have been able to get at least one copy of all the main characters, and then the rest of the grinding that you could do in the game would just be for items, and that's not particularly interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised if every month or so they have to put in 4 new characters, and what Genshin Impact looks like in a year from now will be completely different from what it looks like now. It also very well might make an argument that if you don't play Genshin Impact right now and catch up, you probably are going to have a much harder time later if you're ever going to play Genshin Impact, which I guess all of that is a big if. Here we have a game on Steam called Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, which seems to be half visual novel and half pictograms game, and really just looks like a low effort troll game. $13.49 English only. That's way too expensive for a game, a pictogram game.
Aegis transformation! Holy gem!
So that's not making it to the fullest. Gamatsu has an article here that Marvel's Spider-Man's Miles Morales adds a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Universe suit as DLC, I believe. So, alright. That was good to know.
Repent!
If we're playing against the vampire, we probably should try fairly hard to build up our characters so we can win in 1 or 2 turns instead of getting him just closer and closer to 10, where his vengeance might activate. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Project Existence, which looks like it's just a sandbox style joke game. Sandbox multiplayer prototype is what they're calling it. It's free, English only, so at least nothing terrible, unexpected.
I'll give it to anyone who will listen.
See.
You are done for. Why do I have to do? Someone switch with me.
There we go. Gamatsu has new replicant version big number, a Japanese Snow White edition trailer available. You can look at this limited edition packaging, and you're getting quite a lot by the looks of it. Looks like there's like a whole manga set of books or DVDs. I bet they're books and collectible, like silver pieces, and then this is the overall box, art box, and this is probably an art book. That definitely looks like a fancy thing. Of course, that could also be $200 or $300 worth of content. The guy in charge of YouTube gaming, Ryan Watt, is celebrating 6 years, and he says, "I can remember interviewing with Susan Wojcicki like it was yesterday." It is very possible that Ryan Watt was a hand-picked like favorite of Susan Wojcicki, but even if that was the case, YouTube gaming in general has almost completely failed to
The real battle begins.
to do anything as far as
Unleash my prism
embracing gamers and streamers on YouTube as much as they should. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that YouTube just put out a new version of its app, for me at least, and it is different. I'll have to report back as far as if it's really changing a lot or a little. Probably a small de-emphasis on watching things you're actually subscribed to, as they constantly try to push that, and then also probably increased emphasis on trying to get more people to upload. And it also seems like their ads are potentially worse, which I wouldn't be surprised. Do that. Do that.
Let us conclude.
Do that. See, I just activated his vengeance, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but I might be able to win anyways. Here's that article I was talking about from Nikkei Asia. Sony nears the acquisition of US anime streaming service Crunchyroll, which, like, I really feel like it would be just a weird de-emphasis to go after the anime fans, Sony of Japan, to focus on that, and then kind of drop the ball on the PlayStation as it's being launched. But I mean, those almost certainly are just different, completely different organizations inside the same company. So one probably has very little to do with the other. Here we have a visual novel on Steam called The Seven Wonders of St. Clementine, which definitely looks like it's fairly nicely polished, and the animation drawing here is not the greatest, but it does look like it's heartfelt. That's a weird thing to say, but it doesn't look like somebody just didn't put their effort into it. It just seems like they have a slightly different style that needs more practice. This is coming soon, English only. We've got a ton of games, and we're going to have to leave some of these. I think we had already talked about this one, White Day. Yeah, it's already on the fall list. White Day VR, the Courage Test. And we'll have to see if there's another White Day Courage Test. It's not that. No, but there's White Day Labyrinth Named School, which is on my wish list. Let's see. There's a game called Play Show Jeopardy! Or Jeopardy Play Show, which is now available for Xbox One and Windows 10 for $24.99. I just don't know why so many games are coming out at the same time. It could be a case that maybe a bunch of the holding companies, production companies needed money fast, and so they greenlit the release of some of these games, or it's all just one or two of the same companies. Like, it's kind of insane how a group of like TV producers and movie producers and such all get together in a group or a group call or something, and then they get sold on this idea of doing the same thing. And so 6 months, a year later, 2 years later, 4 years later even, you'll see several of the exact same thing where everybody basically stole the idea from the same person, and you'll get this short burst, in this case, of primetime game shows getting released on gaming platforms. And this is definitely in line with what is happening on primetime TV over the past 2 years or so, in which we saw a large resurgence of older game shows, and that has only continued to grow as it's practically impossible to make like dramas or any other thing in the pandemic times. Anyways, we have a Gematsu article here. A remake for the game Mad Father launches November 5th for the PC and Switch. This was, I believe, an RPG Maker style game that managed to actually catch people's attention. And so a remake might be a major improvement. It might not really be much of an improvement, though. See, I'm just trying to move through the stories here. Here we have a game called Windbound, which has the first of 3 free content updates now available. It adds a witch skin, photo mode, and endless mode, which Windbound looks like it might be a interesting game. Like maybe a bit inspired by Breath of the Wild. TechCrafter has an article here. Haven release date has been revealed for the PS4 and Switch, coming in 2021. Haven was a game we have seen teased before. So now we have a generic release date, which doesn't mean much. Here we have a game on Steam called Strobophagia Rave Horror. This does look weird, but it's mixed already, unfortunately. Yeah. If somebody could take this kind of weird visuals that feel like somebody was high when they thought this stuff up and make an actual game around it. An occult forced rave, strange rituals, enigmatic organizers, and ancient evil, pure psychedelic horror. $16.99, English only. I'm gonna put this on the fall list and see if maybe it gets better and better reviews, but there's a decent chance that's not gonna happen. Here, the Telltale Stranger Things soundtrack was released for free by the composer. Telltale never paid us for this, the composer said, which, well, why release it for free if you want money? It's for free on the YouTube, so maybe they're getting YouTube advertising. And at a certain point, we should probably have a thoughtful conversation about how watching ads on YouTube is not really free. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Mandu versus the Colorless Chorus, which looks like a real Game Boy game. This one actually looks pretty decent in the fact that A, you can make it black and white, and it does seem like it might play fairly well, but it's still, this small screen space is a major limitation. But if you're nostalgic for Game Boy games, this one's free compared to many others that aren't. It's English full audio, so 17 stages. Doesn't sound like a small amount, although in all fairness, I imagine a lot of Game Boy games barely had 5 stages and originally anyways. Here we have a Gamatsu article. A new PlayStation app launches today. Updated user interface, integrated messages, and PlayStation Store and more. Is it for Android and Apple iOS? Yes. So that's interesting. Gamatsu has an article here. Nintendo and Koei Tecmo announced a Buddy Mission Bond for the Switch, which maybe that'll come to the West. It's due out January 29th in Japan. Buddy Mission Bond looks weird. Like I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly what kind of game it would be. Kind of looks like a visual novel to me, but it must have some slightly different system to it. You seem to go to different places and talk to people, which still could be mostly a visual novel. Alright. Next we have a game on Steam here called Deck Survival. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and go through games very quickly here until I can see the end. And then if we see more news, we'll talk about the news. This is $8.49 English only. There's not enough polish here on a game like this. Some of these will be horror games, obviously. Here we have Abs versus the Queen of Blood, which is a platforming game. I'm not going to be interested in that. $14.99 English full audio. A lot of these games are really pricey also. Here we have a game on Steam called Fast Typing Master, which we've seen typing games before. Might be willing to try this, but let's see what the price is. 79 cents English only. I think the problem with a game like this in particular is that at 79 cents, you know what you're getting and you're probably not going to get ripped off too much, so you should probably just either buy it directly or not buy it. Honestly, I'm not sure that even the idea of practicing typing is as smart as one once thought, because it has somebody who wore out their fingers and got arthritis in their fingers from typing way too much. There is very possibly not as good of an argument that you need to type. And for most people, programmers, like authors, people that are writing big things, need to know how to type well, touch type very well. But the vast majority of people don't really need to type that well, and they don't need to practice typing. You take perhaps half a year to a year of keyboarding class in school, and that is probably as much typing as you ever need to do. You don't need to practice it over and over again. And frankly, you'll get much better practice actually typing things of importance than typing like training software. I wouldn't inherently decide to push a kid into a typing program or a typing class at this point. I'd just let them figure it out themselves and touch type, and maybe give them a typing class where they can be observed by a teacher. Here we have a game called Cathedral 3D, which is a Quake clone. You can see it's already mixed. $4.49. I do see the beginning of the end, so let's see if we can burn through some of these games, because I have a lot. There's like 20 games, and we don't need all of these to live over the weekend. I guess I did check my Twitter feed more in the past couple days than I have been for the past couple weeks. Here we have a point and click called Domino House. Since I'm a sucker for point and clicks, I'd be willing to put this on the follow list. It doesn't strike me as amazingly impressive right now. It's $6.95 with a bunch of languages. Put that on the follow list. Here we have a game called Plague MD, which looks like it is a funny plague doctor simulator. It's weird that the video depicts the plague doctor very differently than the animation style we would see. Like here you're seeing a very 3D image, and the rest of the game is definitely not that. This is early access for $5.99 English and Russian, which is a little suspect, but I'll put it on the follow list anyways. We can't suspect every Russian game, just most of them. Here we have a game on Steam called Devilium, which is tagged as a casual puzzler with 3D horror, which seems to take most of its place in text form. It's 99 cents English and Russian. I don't think so on this one. Like, this is just a bad way to depict graphics in general. And it does seem like it's just going to be a full text experience almost. Here we have a game on Steam called Warlock Bent Spine Toilet Edition, which is obviously a joke, low effort game, platformer. It's free, English only, so if that interests you. Next we have Crazy Mafioso, which obviously is just going to be a joke game. Well, actually looks a little bit more polished, but at the end of the day it is kind of just a tower defense game. This early access for $1.19. They really need to quash some of these games being able to label themselves as early access. That makes no sense. Here we have a game called Varuma, which looks like a blocky asset flip game where you're playing as space things. This is just an Among Us clone for $2.99 English, Turkish, and Russian. Here we have a game on Steam called Savage Halloween, which is a side-scrolling shooter with some platforming. Is there enough game here for this retro style, though, that I'd actually want to play it? Actually, I'm not sure. There's something very nostalgic, certainly, with the yellow bar, times lives. Like, this user interface feels very familiar. I can't even tell you where it's from, but I've definitely played a few games that look like this. I'm going to put this on the follow list. Probably wouldn't ever do anything with it, though. And see, I'm just going to keep on trying to burn through games at almost a random selection. Because, yeah, there's a lot here. Here we have a game called My Tetsu Last Run, which looks like it's a visual novel game that has some heavy emphasis on some, what I would call moe anime characters, as either the personifications of trains or as train conductors. It's not tagged with any adult content, but I would not be surprised if there is a patch out there somewhere. Here you can see moe train conductor girls. They did a similar instance of a type of game with moe girls as naval ships and made an anime based on that. That is quite the collection. English is not supported. This is $27.99. It's full Japanese with Chinese. What, I can't remember the name of that anime show though, but it's very popular. Here we have a game called Half-Blood RPG, which are definitely easier to just dismiss style games. Anything that looks like an RPG is pretty easy to dismiss. $7.49 English only. Yeah. Particularly RPG Maker flat 2D RPG games now just have no business existing at all. Knowing that there are just so many 3D RPG games that even if it is a bad 3D RPG game, it still would be better than a random 2D RPG Maker game. Here we have a game on Steam called Cyber Taxi, which seems to be a rough game. It kind of feels like a game you would have played in the early 90s, something that is having to drastically limit how much is actually being animated, so they put stationary art on the top and bottom so they can have a lower resolution for where the video is actually rendering. This is not in line though with what you would want to do if you were driving a car, running around, hitting things or shooting things. This is $7.99 English only. I don't think that needs to be on the follow list. Here we have a game on Steam called Rise of Zombies, which sounds like a very generic game and looks like it is a fairly visually polished first-person shooter, but almost certainly I would guess it is also just a asset flip experience. Interesting. It's not looping around. The forward button won't go to that image. This is $4.99 English only. Yeah, there's not enough polish there. Either Steam's website is not working or I've done something to Steam's website to make it not work. Here we have another one of these crazy, full of flashing, gambly style images. One of these Chinese fake gambling or real gambling games called Fishing Together. $5.99 online PvP, single player only. At least this one doesn't have in-app purchases. Next we have a game on Steam here called Epic Diavolo, which there might be something here, but you do have a lot of background that's repeated. They're calling it a hack and slash puzzle platformer. Feels like it probably will get very messy and very difficult. Yeah, this is really one of those frustration games where you're gonna die on the first attempt. Yeah, and then the 100th attempt after that. $11.19 is also a little too expensive for this type of game. They might be aptly comparing it to DuckTales. They definitely aren't aptly comparing it to Tomb Raider. It's just way too much on the screen. It's way too busy. So I'm going to say no to that. Here we have a game called House. Probably nothing to do with the House TV series. Yeah, this does look like it is this is trying to just be a spooky horror game. There is a very famous Japanese horror movie called House. I don't know if this is based on that though. I don't think it really is. I think they just called it House. Might be inspired by it. So let's give us a look. English and $4.99 is really expensive, but I'll put it on the follow list to see if maybe because they are so showing some influences that will prove that their quality might be a little bit better. Next we have Toho Gensoku Visitor, which is tagged as an adventure anime fantasy game. Feels more like a visual novel game, using I think the same characters or the same style as other Toho games. 719 English, Russian, Chinese, and Japanese. I don't know if this would be the kind of Toho game I'd want to play, but for my own sanity's sake of not having to really decide right now, I'll just put it on the fall list and we'll see if anybody has any reviews to give. Next we have a game called Disquiet Field, which this is Dark Screenshot Syndrome horror games. Lots and lots of games or horror games trying to come out around Halloween. English full audio. There's really no reason why you shouldn't just be releasing horror games all the way till the end of the year and just throughout the entire year. There's always going to be competition. There's no reason to bundle it all up on the same weekend. Next we have a game on Steam here called Meet the Alamo, which is probably a joke game. Let's see. A comedy shooter loosely based on the historic battle that birthed Texas. Okay. Let's see. 1039 English full audio. If any of these images would load, I would like to see the screenshots because that's well, I'm still holding determination out. Yeah, this just feels like it's a low effort joke experience. Yeah, I don't think that there's real game here. And in general, I don't think many people want to set their game around the Alamo situation anyways, because it puts Mexico in a somewhat bad light, or America in a somewhat bad light, so it's still kind of controversial as a thing. Certainly there's been plenty of like World War II shooters because there is really no argument on who the bad guys are there. The Alamo is a bit more of an argument that there was bad guys on both sides. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called The Missing Few, which I feel like I've heard of this game before and it maybe just got ported. Not sure there's a real game here though, or whether this is just a walking simulator. $11.69 English full audio. See, when we look, kind of looks like it is just a walking simulator with a kind of mystery going. That might work, so I'll put it on the fall list. $11.69, fairly expensive though. Next we have a game on Steam called The Tool, which seems like it is just an asset flip. A bunch of garbage thrown together. Casual puzzle game. Create your own combination of physical world objects. Watch and run physical simulations. So it's basically an experimental project. It's free to play, English only, so I guess you can't be too upset with it, but it also isn't really a game and shouldn't really be allowed on Steam. Here we have a game called Sloth Tales, which is a platforming game that doesn't look impressive. It's free, English only. I think we may be able just to burn through all the news today and then call it a day, even though we've been going 3 hours and 24 minutes. Next, we have a game called Mr. Heeble, which is a platformer. Nothing special there. $4.49, bunch of languages, allegedly full audio in all the languages. There is an argument, though, that there should be platformers that look a little bit more polished like this to be middle grounds between New Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 1, particularly considering how neither one of those games are available on PC. Next we have a game called Roche's Journey. I guess that's how you pronounce that. And it looks like a low effort platform puzzler game. May not really be a platformer. They're tagging it as Sokomon. 20 different puzzles and levels. Do I not understand what Sokomon is? Let's click on this tag. So a lot of things tag Sokomon. Very possibly a lot of things that shouldn't be tagged Sokomon. Top rated. Apparently, I don't understand what Sokomon is. Maybe that means something much more generic than what I thought it meant. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Shut In, which is a dark screenshot pixel game. Psychological horror, dark comedy, short is what's being tagged as. $3.99 English only. There. See, we have a game called Horror Bar VR. There was a game where you would shoot zombies and get drunk, if I recall correctly. That's a pretty old game, and it has nothing to do with this, but yeah, I was just reminded of it. This is VR for $15.99, English full audio. What are you actually doing? Zombie bar simulator where you take on the role of bartender and serve your scarily nice customers multiple crazy dishes and drinks. So really it's just a cook and serve type game. Although in this case you do have weirder ingredients, so that does put a different spin on it. Although I just don't know how many people actively want to be serving brains or grinding up rats and killing rodents and things like that. That seems fairly gross. That would be potentially funny to see as a cutscene, but not something that a lot of people want to actively engage in. And frankly, it's only funny once. After a few repetitions, you lose the comedy. Here we have a game on Steam called Realms of Eternity, a VR action RPG with realistic combat and stealth elements, according to the description. Seems like you get a ninja sword and a bow. Yeah, there might be a game here, but I'm not sure there's actually a story or game, or if it's just a simulator. Early access $9.99, which is fairly cheap for a VR game, English only. Put that on the fall list and we'll see if it gets any better. See. Next we have a game on Steam called Flap Demon. As we're wrapping up here, I think I do want to mention, like, please reconsider if you are going out door to door this Halloween trying to trick or treat or going to parties or anything like that. Don't just abandon social distancing advice, which is good advice, because a holiday happens, and that this is going to be the exact same message that you should take certainly for Thanksgiving and Christmas and every other holiday, potentially every event whatsoever in 2021. But I'll just put it out there as a general concern for humanity. This game, Flap Demon, looks like it's a little bit of a platformer game. Yeah, that's pretty much it. $4.99 English only. Nothing more to say about that. So many horror games. Here we have one called Visage or Visage. Let's see. I think Visage probably is the better way to pronounce that. It's $34.99 English full audio. Does it support VR? No. But, and that's not just a dark screenshot, that's still. Clearly what happens is when I'm uploading, I don't have enough upload speed, so I need to lower the upload bandwidth cap a little bit more, which even at that, it seems like my uploading speed's pretty bad because I'm dropping, still it says like 63.9% of frames. So yeah. And I didn't even talk about the servers I actually was setting up. I'm setting up a server. This looks good. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. Although, honestly, I very possibly should just put it on the wish list. There's a network like UPS tools, or just NUT for short server, that will allow one of my server to then tell my other computer, hey, this is the battery backup status, because the battery backup has only like one USB cord that can be plugged into it, so it can then relay that information. And then there is a syslog, system logging software server. R syslog, I believe, is what I set up. There's several different system logging softwares that I set up as a server so that then the other computers connected to the server, since I'm trying to make the other computers as dumb as possible and as reliant on the main server as possible, that they will just send their system logs to that. You kind of need to set that up if you want any logging from the other Docker containers anyways, because they can't access the logs internally outside of their sandbox. So they kind of have to network wise just tell through a network, through a separate internal network, that these are the logs and these aren't. So those are two things I've made small bits of progress with, but I'm still working on it. I'm hoping I might get lucky and have a breakthrough. Here, this game, Depths of Sanity, it's tagged as a Metroidvania game. And we've seen a couple of underwater Metroidvania games, so I'm a little iffy here on this. Not sure there's something here I really would want to play. Underwater levels in games tend to be awful. This is $13.49. I just don't see enough visual polish for that to deserve to make it. And Visage just also came out for Xbox One, so it's good to know. The deluxe version now of Angry Video Game Nerd 1 and 2 is on Steam. It's always weird as a video game critic to talk about other YouTubers. But yeah, I didn't really like the first game. I felt like the game was way too hard, and they were intentionally making these parody games hard, and I just didn't enjoy it. $14.99. If you liked Angry Video Game Nerd and frustration platformers and frustrating old games, then that's something that I'd recommend. Otherwise, I'd say skip it. Here we have a game that's all Asian characters that looks like it's just a Chinese mobile game that has been ported. It's free, but English has not been supported. MMO within that purchases. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Ghostly, which looks like an RPG where you play as a ghost, which is a different experience, certainly. I could be a little critical on the NES style graphics, but I'd be willing to overlook that. $9.99 English only. I'm going to put that on the follow list. Playing as a ghost could be a very interesting idea, particularly if you know you're a ghost at the beginning. There's probably plenty of times where you've played as a ghost and it's been revealed later on, but you kind of have to decide what the ghost is really going to do. Here we have a game on Steam, Star Maiden's Chronicle Definitive Edition. It's tagged as a real-time strategy game. It looks to me like it's probably a cheaper Chinese game, just trying to sell itself on some anime waifu girls. $19.99 English, Japanese. Well, I'm wrong. It's a cheap Japanese game trying to sell itself on Anime Waifu. In a funny way, it does have the beginnings of a feeling like something like StarCraft, where you're selecting multiple units, but also like StarCraft or Warcraft. I'm not sure. Those gameplay mechanics are great. Here we have a game on Steam called Tin Can, which is tagged as a space simulation survival management game. Well, I might be willing to do that. That's an interesting idea. I think we've seen similar simulation games that kind of make sense. This is $11.99 English and French full audio. And yeah, I'll put that on the fall list and think about it some more. Wait until it comes out of early access. Here we have a game on Steam called City 909, which looks like it's just blocky, polygonal, maybe parkour, 3D platforming. It's $8.99 English only. Nothing there. So we have about 5 more things, and then I'm going to scroll through my Twitter feed and just talk about important news, and then we'll be done. Everything else we'll leave for Monday. Here we have Gaelic Wars Battle Simulator. I feel like either we talked about this game already, or there was a game exactly like this, just a different war. This is $3.99 English full audio as a battle simulator. I don't really see anything here good enough to really interest me. Like, generally, I just don't want to play battle simulator. That's too generic of a game. Next, we have a game on Steam called Illness in the East, which might be somewhat prescient. It does look like just an RPG Maker game, possibly from a Russian company. $4.49 Russian only. 3 more. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Extortion, which is a hacking programming game, which just has like far too much text. I don't really want to play a game like that. Too much text. $4.79 English and French. And frankly, if I'm going to be doing programming / hacking, I want to probably do it in the real world and not in a game simulator when it's just going to be all text. If you're going to make a game around it, you need to gamify it and make it easier and quicker and more idiot proof, because even I need a lot of programming to be more idiot proof. Here we have a game called Divi-Lixa. I don't know how you pronounce that. Divi-Lixa. To me, it looks like it's just a top-down twin-stick shooter dungeon crawler. Early access, free-to-play, English only. A game about strife, sacrifice, and insanity. Yeah, I think they're reaching there in that description. And then we have R-Type Final 2, which apparently is a new R-Type game that is coming out. Which, alright, that sounds interesting. That they're making new R-Type games. R-Type is possibly one of the few games that even you could begin to justify making a modern version of, or a continuation of the series, where a lot of the other Space Invaders games and Pac-Man games have had to bend over backwards to find some way, anyway, whatsoever, of making something that actually works. And we've seen that the 99 Battle Royale concept is working somewhat decently as far as putting new life into very, very old games. Alright, and then that brings me to my Twitter feed. There's a Sweet Holiday Jigsaws on Steam, and jigsaw puzzle game. I'm just gonna mention games if they mention. Lego Universe Emulator enters talks with Lego to legitimize the product. Interesting. Assassin's Read Valhalla review embargo. Details have leaked or come out. Probably not leaked. Very few true leaks, actually, ever. Let's see. Apex Legend Clubs brings clans to Season 7. If anybody plays Apex Legends and knows what that means. You know what? I think this week I just want to do some Lego and take a break. It would be a good excuse to also upload videos if I can get around to actually uploading the videos. The biggest issue there is that I just never take that extra 5 minutes to go, yeah, let's upload these videos, or let's label the videos that have been uploaded. Watch Dogs Legions is out and not getting too much coverage. Fairy Tale Mosaic Cinderella, another Mosaic game. 1001 Jigsaw World Tour. A game called Gym Legends, another gym game. I'm just going to mention, yeah, there's several like really bad games that have come out now in the past couple hours. Pirate Jigsaw. A game called Griddler's Ted and Pet, which looks like it's a pictocross image. They're trying to promote, Bethesda is trying to promote Deathloop quite a lot. So they want Deathloop to actually sell, even though I think Deathloop was delayed, so maybe it wasn't delayed that much. We'll be done in just a second or so because I'm already seeing tweets from like 2 hours ago. Not a lot of things have happened. I've been seeing memes on Facebook of people saying that the AMD video cards are not as good as people thought they were. The CD Projekt Red president apologizes for an utterly bad Cyberpunk 2077 comments, which, okay, like, again, that's one of those internal grievances that I am just tired of hearing about. Like, somebody shut their mouth off. Who cares? I just want to know if the game's out, if the game's good. I just want to experience a game and escape life for a while, like most people. Well, although in my case, as a video game critic, playing the video game is pretty much the life. When I'm not playing video games is the escape. But all this drama, all this ridiculousness. There's not a lot of like little art coming out for Halloween in a weird way. Like, I just saw id Software put out a little drawing image to celebrate Halloween, but not really a lot of like skins or just fan art or not fan art but just advertising art, yeah, which just once again goes to show that the Halloween holiday is a very second tier. It may be number one on the second tier of holidays, but it is definitely a second tier experience. Alright, well, that's all we need to say, and that's all we need to do. That's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a link down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, you can friend me on Steam and get me a gift card or buy me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.